Why, hello there, misfits one and all, to tonight's episode of Call Me Skeptical. Does hell exist? Where tonight we are opening up the internet phone lines to see if anyone can help us understand, does hell exist? Or rather, the torture pit where you go after you die. So won't you join James W. and myself, Amy Newman, for an eternal damnation of fun? Woohoo! That's right. What is up, everyone? Welcome all across the interwebs. If you're feeling fancy, please don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe, because then you gain access to that bell icon, which when sent to all will send you reminders to see our premieres or join our live shows. During the show, feel free to tag James W. or myself in chat at Amy Newman with your thoughts, questions, and one-liners, because it makes it easier for us to see your comment. Furthermore, we are a skeptic channel, including the two schmucks that you see before you. Oh my, that's right. What's up, Gizmo? However, Call Me Skeptical is specifically looking for views that don't agree with our own. So if you fit the bill, the link to join the show will soon head into chat and on screen. How did they do that? We also love people who do agree with us, atheists, skeptics, and people who believe in science. Though if you think the world is 6,000 years old, that evolution is a hoax, or that the world is flat, oh, well then, gee willigers, speak to us right away.
I think Amy's part lizard.
That's right. It came back 43% space lizard specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it, but thanks, parents.
Grandpa Iggy.
I know. It goes right from rock, who creationist is what they think that atheists think that where our ancestors came from. But then somewhere in the line, I was part space lizard that came here to control the world, or something. So
far, your plan is going really well. I think you're well on your way to global domination.
And as I always say, it's never the old world order. It has to be the new world order, because the old world order is just not as sexy. But this housekeeping is fact sponsored by our Patreons at patreon.com/Amy Newman, including awesome Patreons like us from the Atheist Roundtable, because hashtag we do it better in the non-believer community than a lot of other, just the theists, they schism. It's just a problem. They end up having holy wars over canonical nonsense. And yet at the Atheist Roundtable, we accept all non-believers. YouTube.com/the Atheist Roundtable. Shout out to Oz and the lovely and fantastic Ian Davenport.
Thanks, Ian.
As we've been really going hard on young Earth creationism, and
Science Films have seen it.
It doesn't seem designed. Is this a watch? Wait, is this a watch or is this a watch? I'm going with this. But thanks anyway. It's creationists.
Amy and James cry about creationists. Yeah, they do get under our skin a little bit.
This is my smack, my little.
But we have a lot of fun smacking down creationists. It is a labor of love.
Can almost say it's like a whack-a-mole, but it
There
is
you go.
truly a labor of love. It's almost like a God of the Gaps whack-a-mole. Whenever you pop down one, they're like, well, if monkeys still exist, why are there still monkeys? Or, we came from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? No,
I don't understand, therefore God. No.
In
I don't
fact,
understand this, therefore God.
when we
No.
hear these claims, it makes us and a grumpy old cuss go bleep, bleep. I'm sorry, what the bleep did you just say? Did you just say the Earth is 6,000 years old? Oh no, that
And
totally
had
corresponds to science.
an ice dome.
An ice dome,
The open
exactly.
theory, the ice dome.
Well, I love that. You got to make sure it has a dome, because then where the water would just fall off, right? So at least we have the
The water
model going
the
on.
water above would just rain right down without the ice dome.
And yet they don't have an excavation team. There's been no, I guess, millionaire, billionaire creationists that have sought out to discover this ice wall.
Oh no, it came down during the flood. Don't worry about it. It's not
okay.
there anymore. Yeah. During the flood,
Look, sometimes you need to wipe the slate clean, and then
Yeah.
by that I mean murder everyone.
It's like the Garden of Eden. You know, God put an angel there to guard it for a while, but eventually He just removed it from the earth altogether. So you can never go find the Garden of Eden.
Also, God never does anything himself. If he's not has a human to do shit, he's got an angel to do shit.
Well,
It's all about middle management.
I mean, you might ask yourself, you know, how do we know that Jesus was God? What would you expect a God to do? Whatever he wants. You'd expect him to do all kinds of crazy things, and you'd expect him to make other people do things for him. And that's exactly what Jesus did. Like, did Jesus write anything for himself? No. I mean, he could have wrote something, but he just decided, well, I'm God, and if I'm not going to write anything, I'm not going to write anything. You're just going to have to deal with the Gospels written decades later. And
we basically have to get erotic fan fiction from Paul 50 years later. But, you know, whatever you're into, we're not kink shaming.
If you don't like it, what are you going to do about it, Amy? He's God.
But it's just so ridiculous to think that you had a vision 50 years later. And that I also love that the body went totally missing. We're going off completely into Jesus land, but it just always, how convenient. What a coincidence. The body's gone. It went to heaven. Do all the other bodies go to heaven after you die? Well, not really.
A couple of them.
But apparently Jesus, he has to have the flesh actually go up to the body. It can't just be like his bones.
Well, the Catholics think Mary went too.
Oh, okay. So a few people get UFO'd up, but the rest of us just have to die.
One of the two.
And it's convenient. No, it leaves no evidence. But not only is it not evidence, but they basically have the audacity to use that as the explanation. Well, it's an empty tomb. Do you see anybody in the tomb? No, that's our point. What are you talking about? There's no one here. You are making up a story, John. What are you talking about?
I mean, no. I don't know. I haven't seen any bodies for any of the other gods or goddesses around the world. So, I mean,
but
maybe they all roast too.
That's true. Maybe they're all roasted and toasted, like the subject. And speaking of sending love to, when we talk about these Abrahamic religions, which is mostly the ones who believe in this type of thing, they kind of put 51% of, humanity. In fact, in many, I would say, parishioners in many mosques, I do not think that women can still lead in many different church attendances or
not in churches that adhere to the biblical dictates. I mean, there are very, very liberal churches who just do whatever they want, and there they do it, but they're doing that not because the Bible tells them to do that. They're doing that by ignoring what the Bible says.
Yes, exactly. We're thankful. And Diana Smith and the rest of us are very thankful. And yet, if you actually read the holy text, they're a little bit misogynistic. Don't mean to go all feminista on you, feminista on you, but it really, if You are treating women like cattle. If you're so triggered that you have to go male servant before female servant, even in slavery, women can't catch a break. Whew. I don't know. It's a whole hard bronze world. That's all we have to say.
Yeah. Let's bring in the turfs. Let's bring them on in. Bring in the turfs.
Yo, it would be so funny. Exactly. We don't often do politics or social issues, but if you do disagree with us on any of those issues, I guess come one, come all. I always find those issues so far. I find it is. I don't even really like using the term first world anymore because I don't like where the roots of it come from. And yet I can't think of a more first world problem than anything that is on their agenda. It's why we don't even talk about it so much, because there's supposedly a being that is going to judge us, that is going to torture us forever. So I actually feel great in my gender, sexuality, and all that. But there seems to be a guy that's about to put a thing through us and then put us over a charcoal pit and turn it like we're roasting chickens. So I do have things on my mind. Oh my! But sending love to Diana Smith and sending love to Pat Willinger, the resident archaeologist of the house, who has done many fantastic episodes of Talk Skeptic to Me, which more in pre-production. We have to having a shout out like a trailer just so we can get more. We want more expertise in academia, and we're reaching out to everyone out there. But you should watch Pat's fantasticness, not only on this channel where he's talked about sacredness, did a spooky episode on Halloween, and is absence of evidence of absence? Spoiler, maybe. You can also find his content at the lovely, fantastic, and fabulous, I saw her out there in the channel, Biddy Buddha. You can find them at youtube.com/BiddyBuddha_, also hashtag tagging. But yes, sending love to Pat and also Dale, who, we are just looking for a little bit of empirical evidence. It's actually, and I get in arguments all the time. I was just talking with a theist the other day who said basically, Dale, James, myself, all the skeptics, we are closed-minded the moment that we actually want empirical evidence for a God. That's actually when we have shut ourselves off. Because how dare we want that to use as a barometer for the supernatural, whatever that is. But
how dare we?
How dare we? And sending love to Dale and Digger.
Thank you, Dale. How dare we not just have blind faith, right? How dare we just not believe something because a book says so?
Oh my God! And once again, what a great PR, a great politically correct term. Blind faith. You don't need. It's not, James. It's not about faith. We want to have faith. You don't want to have blind faith. You don't want to just well, what does actually just faith mean? Well,
evidence of things not seen and things hoped for.
Yeah. Okay. So that actually sounds a little blind, but who's counting?
You don't see it, but you believe it anyway. So yeah.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind. And sending love to Dave Garr and Scott Duke, the lead hyena of the pack, reminding us that, yes, another triggering word for creationists. How dare you? You can call yourself an animal. How dare you put me beneath or on even the same level as these animals that roll around in dirt, even though a pig actually is a cleanly animal and only run. They don't sweat, and so they have to rub themselves around in dirt and then
themselves cool.
Yeah, to keep cool. But generally speaking, and they could probably beat many humans at video games using a human joystick, a regular old human joystick. But once again, how dare us ever put them? But James, you do know we went to the moon. Did you know that? Just want to put that on the record.
That's what they're saying anyway. I don't know. I've never I've never actually seen it.
And I swear, this is my new pet peeve. When I bring this up as a topic, I swear, James is sometimes like, should we even really do this? But I had a Muslim apologist basically use, do you believe that we went to the moon? Well, if you do, then someone just told you that. You didn't see someone go to the moon. Thus, the Quran, or insert whatever really holy book you want, is equally as valid as someone believing that we went to the moon.
I mean,
No.
We do know that the moon exists. We do know that it is a thing, and people do go places. So imagine just connect two and say of people going places to that one place that we know exists. And
And the other thing, I just have to do hashtag footprints. There are footprints on the moon. Are they CGI? Is there like a projector?
Yeah, now we're getting to the point where we can actually, for the longest time, you could never see detail like that on the moon, but were
now
able
you
to.
Have no excuse.
Now we can. They've always been able. I think they put mirrors on the moon to reflect lasers.
So you can shoot beams. That's another point I brought up.
To be able to measure the distance very accurately, and so we know exactly how far the moon away is at any given point.
Exactly. There is actual verifiable ways. It doesn't have to be. First of all, we accept science and things from scientists because they are the actual academics, the people who have the expertise. But there are ways to verify, just like we know the world is round. You don't have to go into space to know that. As James brings up a million times, we knew this for thousands of years.
Yeah, it's so ironic though that there were people that had figured it out, but both the Bible and the Quran, 1,000 or 500 years behind the times, they both doubled down on the flat Earth.
Doubled down. Now,
no.
Granted, if you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, chances are you actually don't believe in a flat Earth, and you're like, why are you
99%.
putting me with all these fringe people? Well, we just pointing out. There are I often get there are no contradictions in these books. Yes, there are. You want a contradiction between science, reality, and what your holy book says. Check it out at Regos Reminds Us. We have a Bible study. Woo! A skeptic Bible study, which is on the dock. That's probably going to be the next episode coming up because we are in Deuteronomy, and it's been a hell of a time.
Now, not all fundamentalist theists are flat earthers, but all flat earthers are fundamentalist theists.
I have never met, and I almost never say never because
I think
I'm sure there's someone, but I've never met one.
Very few and far between.
Debate community or whatever, I've never seen one. In fact, my favorite thing about flat Earth debates is that if you tickle them, if you just give them a little, or maybe even a little bit of a prick, all of a sudden, all the theism just, well, of course it's because you're going to hell, heathen. And you're like, where'd all the science go?
Of course it's because the Bible says.
I was just doing that science stuff because that's what you atheists believe in. But of course I'm doing this for our Lord Jesus Christ.
A book says so, right?
James, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but book said a thing.
I mean, that Ken Hovind went over that extensively in the debate. The book says so. What do you go do with that?
And once again, it reminds me because at first I didn't know. It seemed like he didn't bring up religion a lot when I first heard it. I just must have focused on this what he was trying to attack evolution. But upon the second time, it's just really back and forth. He basically preaches in between taking pot shots at science. We can call it evolution, which he does a lot, but it's really just science in general. I'm glad he trusts the Weather Channel. Anything else, I'm not even sure.
Maybe.
Maybe even that. I know. As soon as I went global warming in my head, there's no way he believes in that. I take back the last 15 seconds. I can't even give him that.
Yeah. That's controlled by the satanic lizard reptilian
It is.
New World
It's the
Order
New World
conspiracy.
Order. They want you
Controlling the
get
weather
those
channel.
5G chips. Most people have to pay extra for 5G phones, or make sure. Now you gotta. Once it's 6G or 7G, I feel like then we'll just be walking around. We'll finally have it.
How long till we get the 666G?
The 6. That's what we really need.
Like
the 666G.
another 400 years or whatever.
I don't know. Like I said, the New World Order seems very slow. But we're sending love. Though I do have to just send out a shout out to the globe, which has been tragedies and all, which are currently going generally trending upwards in the right direction. If you check out Better Angels of Our Nature, which is a fantastic book, and sending love to Rachel Holland.
Rachel.
To the lovely, fantastic, and amazing, because Rachel is reminding us that a holy book would never, enslave people from the nations around them. That would be terrible and objectively wrong, and something we could kind of, point out 3.5 thousand years plus later.
Yeah, so God, we're not condoning slavery anymore. Did you get the memo on that, God?
Yeah, I don't think they did.
Okay, God, we'll go ahead and make sure you get another copy of that memo.
Yeah, we'll add it in the 10 Commandments version 2. They need an updated. It's technically 600, but no one. If you're doing a list, it's got to be like the top 10.
Trying to circumcise an ant
doesn't work exactly. And last,
especially in the modern era, people can't pay attention.
Oh no! Do you know
the TikTok generation more than like 10 seconds? So
no, exactly.
And you can't do 600. 10 is maybe doable.
It also saddens me because I feel like prophets would be on like their Instagram game. They would be on the TikToks. They'd be doing it all. Okay, they would be social mediaing it up. But apparently they had to write it in Arabic, Hebrew, and Latin. So, oh well.
I mean, can you imagine 100 years from now? 100 years from now, the TikToks will be like 4 seconds long, and people will be saying that's too long. That they can't pay attention for 4 seconds.
Yeah. Once again, once we get our chips installed, you'll get your memes right to the brain. Just yes, funny, ha ha ha. But sending love last but last least, Senator Cato.
Cato,
reminding us of
course
Cato? That we, cherish the separation of church and state, of which specifically the young earth creationist movement seems to be the enemy of. They want their version of theocracy running the game.
Yeah, like Saudi Arabia, but a Christian version of that. There
Indeed.
You go.
That's my favorite Hitchens example. It's you want a celestial North Korea. Fantastic.
Oh, yeah,
but
God is Kim Jong-un.
That would be so funny if it's just a little pudgy guy had it all wrong.
He is more like Yahweh than most of the other world leaders. There you go.
Sending love to all of our Patreons, you who enable us to make this fun content, along with the people in chat, our mods, and of course, viewers like you. And all right, before we switch into callers, and in fact, I will even send the link into stream if you would like to join us. But as that is getting queued up, it's true. It's true that my kitty wants to go outside and explore. We all have our overlords. Some of them tend to be fur babies. Anyway, sending love And does hell exist? No. I was not born into a culture that has a hell. Instead, the Jews believe in what they call Sheol, which is simply a place of darkness after death. That's right. The Old Testament God, for how much of a dick he was, lets people die. The journey comes to an end. Unfortunately, for Christians and Muslims, the fun has only just begun. They seem to have borrowed concepts from Zoroastrianism to create a system of heaven and hell. A good old carrot and stick. Oh my. And while those are fine for children's stories, eternal torture pits with lakes of screaming people isn't exactly the best bedtime story. I can understand why at first pitch it sounds good to believers. Bad people go to hell. Good people go to heaven. Who doesn't love that? Well, all we need to do is look at the fine print. The world isn't that simple. People and situations are often more in the gray. It's easy to pull a Godwin's law and start imagining a bunch of Hitlers burning for their crimes against humanity. Well, if that were the case, hell would be fairly small. Most humans in the world, non-believer and believer, seem to be doing their best job at life. If a starving child steals a loaf of bread, but they grow up to discover the cure for cancer, are they going to burn like tinder and with less sex? We must ask ourselves, what exactly is the criteria to get into hell? God seems to have some very human-like flaws. Do we burn if we simply don't believe in a God? What if it's the wrong God? Or just the wrong denomination of the right God? Does God have a scorecard? Can we check our rating on an app? Also, I have to say, if belief is the only reason for us burning forever, and I repeat, forever, then this God is what we call an eternal dick. Forever is a long time. Just imagine 1,000,000 years. No. 10 billion years. Who? No. 100 trillion years. It's only the beginning. Does that sound like a fair punishment or anything? To me, it sounds like the sadomasochistic torture porn from a narcissistic sociopath. So when someone asks me, does hell exist? Not only can I say, heck no, I can say with a smile on my face, thank Bob. Such an evil concept, that's right, does not seem to be real. Thank you. And that's right. Thank you, Bob Larson. And all right, James, are you ready to be tortured for fun?
That's a regular Saturday night for us, isn't it?
Woo-hoo. Basically.
So yeah, of course, hell doesn't exist, and let's talk a little bit about hell. So we know that when we begin the Bible in Genesis, when God's talking to Adam and Eve, and He tells them what's going to happen if they eat the wrong fruit from the wrong tree. Of course, they don't know what they're doing because He made them be morally ignorant, but He tells them they're going to die. He never mentions anything about an eternal place of torment where not only could they be at risk of going, but every subsequent human would be going there by default unless they accept a certain proposition about a future coming Messiah that God will, work out eventually. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. Growing up in a Christian home and going to Christian churches, hell was something that we were preached about constantly. It was always something on our mind because that's why you want to go out and you want to convert more people to Christianity because then they won't have to go to hell. That's, if you really believe it's a real serious place and that they're going to go, then that would be quite a motivational force to want to go convert people. And that's actually one of the excuses that they uh, use for allowing slavery on the African continent. Because, hey, I mean, we got to give an economic incentive for people to convert these people to Christianity. So, I mean, hey, they are being kidnapped violently and transported away from their home and forced to work under threat of death. But at least they won't have to go to hell because we can bring the missionaries in, we can baptize them, they'll go to church. And yeah, they'll be working in a foreign land as slaves, but at least they won't go to hell, right? So therefore, it's an infinitely better, infinitely less cruel thing, no matter how harsh and cruel this life is, if you even avoid one person from going to hell. And but I remember, so that's how we approached hell in the Christian church. But it always struck me, and it didn't take too long for me to notice this. When you look at the Old Testament, you look at the stories of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're nomadic goat herders in the desert. They're wandering around, breeding their goats, and existing as a tribe of people did back in the day. They're not any more ignorant necessarily than anybody else, but they weren't going around trying to convert everybody to Judaism or proto-Judaism. It wasn't even really a thing. They would, if you came to them and you said, "Hey, we like what you guys are doing. We'd like to convert to your faith," they'd consider it and they'd maybe take you. But it wasn't like something that you had to do, otherwise they're all going to hell. That wasn't even part of the ethos. When Joseph goes and is sold into slavery by his brothers in Egypt, and eventually becomes like the prime minister, vice pharaoh, or whatever. Uh, he's not trying to convert the pharaoh to Judaism. It's not even like a thing. It's just thanks for agreeing to take care of my people and allowing my people to come in so they can avoid the famine that God created, so that later on they can be enslaved and then God can get the credit for rescuing them. It's all for His glory, the whole thing. But yeah, you would think that if this hell place really was real and it really was a place people are going to go to, that would be one of the first and most important things God would lay out to people. That would be one of the most important things He would tell anybody. But He never clearly mentions it in the first books of the Bible, never. And you eventually get glimmers and little snippets of it going through the Old Testament, but you never really get to the clear New Testament version of hell that we see talked about in the Gospels and the epistles. And of course, as Amy pointed out, that's because Judaism had influence from Zoroastrianism, which was practiced in Iran. The Jewish people were, or Persia at the time, they were intermittently held in captivity in Persia due to military. In fact, they lost militarily because they weren't worshiping Yahweh enough. So, therefore, God allowed the Persian Empire to conquer them and haul off a lot of their aristocracy over to Iran, where they learned about the Iranian beliefs. And that the tool of hell and this dichotomy of an afterlife, this good and bad, whereas the original version of it was not quite so. It was very vague and nebulous, and it wasn't quite clear on exactly what was happening, what was going on in Sheol. It was kind of skimpy on the details, but they realized the power that a doctrine like this would have, and that's to say that when you've got a position and you have very, very, very little in the way of actual evidence to make people believe in it, you can make it more, you can make people reluctant to leave that, or maybe even more amenable to converting to it, when you make the penalty so severe and so diabolical that no one would ever want to even contemplate risking it, even if there's a 1 out of 1 trillion chance it's true. The other result is just so terrible, you don't even want to think about it. I think that hell really does, probably more than anything else, keep so many Christians in the faith today. I think a lot of them are really just afraid to go to hell. And Oz at the Atheist Round Table, he's talked about it before, his deconversion story, and I don't think anybody would accuse him of not being a manly man. But even after his deconversion, it took him a long time and counseling and therapy to get over the fear of hell, to be able to not be live in fear of that tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of a percent chance that you're wrong. And then therefore we go to Pascal's wager and we get questions like that, like, hey, I mean, what if you're wrong? If you're wrong and you're an atheist, you've lost everything. But if you're wrong and you're a Christian, you just die, you go in the ground. You don't really have anything to lose. And that's only true, or that only works if you don't care about the truth, if you don't care what's true and what's not true. You just want to believe something out of fear and you know knock yourself out. But if you actually care about what's true, then fear is not a healthy gauge of determining what's true or not. Fear clouds the mind, it clouds the judgment, like excessive amounts of anger can.
It is
It
the
can be
mind
very
killer.
destructive. It is. It can cripple you and in fear, and they used hell, was used throughout the years as this tool to keep people in the Christian faith. And even when you look at what happened moving into the Middle Ages in Europe, when they uh, they had the Inquisition, and as I've said before, as horrible as the Inquisition was, and their notoriously brutal methods of questioning people, and the terrible amounts of violence they inflicted. If hell is true, it kind of makes it sort of justified, because if you're killing and brutalizing people, but if there are people out there spreading heresies, they're going to send people to hell, then you're basically justified in doing just about anything to put a stop to that, no matter how brutal. Because what is killing 1,000 people in this life compared to one person going to hell forever? I mean, the amount of suffering is immeasurably higher. And so, therefore, that's why they came up with the idea of burning heretics at the stake.
Oh
Um,
boy.
Right, give them a taste of what they're going to come up with one of the most cruel and sadistic ways of killing people imaginable. Because hey, that's what God's going to do to them after they die, right? And if it'll deter a few people from engaging in heresy and from spreading false teachings that are going to send people to hell, why not? And the Inquisition was set up in towns all over Europe, and they would go from town to town. And typically, if you were denounced and you would confess, if you admitted that you had held a heretical belief, the priests and inquisitors would give you a certain amount of penance to do. You might have to, you know, do some prayers, abstain from meat. They would give you some things to do, but they wouldn't execute you your first time. Your first time. If you relapsed again and you fell into heresy, then that's where they would turn you over to the secular authorities to be executed. Now, if you were repentant and if you still expressed that you were sorry or that you wanted to again abandon your heresy, they would grant you a confession. They would send a confessing priest to absolve you of your sins before they executed you. That way you wouldn't have to go to hell forever. But yeah, this doctrine, it is really skewed the entire way we look at things, and that comes from Christianity and our Judeo Christian. I know that phrase is a loaded
Gotta
term.
throw in the PR term.
Yeah, it's really affected our ethos. And if you want to look at like what is that, the sermon, the preacher that Fred Phelps used to talk about all the time, sinners in the hands of an angry God. I think the preacher was Jonathan Edwards, and he lived in the 1700s. He used to give these hellraiser sermons where he would basically tell you all you guys are basically dangling over a barbecue grill right now, and the only reason you don't fall down into that grill is because God is nice enough not to let you drop in there right now. But if you keep going out there and sinning, if you keep out doing the wrong thing, God can drop you down there at any time, and once you're down there, you're fucked. You're down there forever. Yeah, they used to the church used it as a money making thing back in the Middle Ages, even if they weren't necessarily executing people for heresy. But Catholicism developed this doctrine called purgatory, which is it's a pseudo hell. It's a temporary place. They're kind of skimpy on the details, but it's where you would go and be cleansed of your sins. Not that you're going to go to hell, you just don't get to go to heaven until your sins are cleansed in purgatory, whether that's a physical pain or whether that's some type of psychological re-education. Ask different clerics; they all had different interpretations on it, because the biblical references are not detailed at all, but they used to justify it. But um, it was commonly believed that if you had lived a life of sin, and that you could spend up to millions or even billions of years in purgatory before you'd be allowed to go to heaven. And the Catholic Church used this to sell indulgences. So if you had money, you could get your parents or your a departed friend or loved one, you could cut down their time in purgatory or just terminate it altogether, and you could basically buy them an early ticket to heaven. And they sold a lot of these indulgences. They made a lot of money off of it for a long time. It was one of the things that sparked the Protestant Reformation, and the Catholic Church did reform itself, and they don't sell indulgences anymore. They grant indulgences for acts of penance or prayer, but they don't sell them like they used to. That kind of the PR on that was kind of not very good. But anyway, um, yeah, and this idea of hell and these Catholic Church, these confessing priests. So in Catholicism, if their salvation, their soteriology doctrine is a lot different than Protestantism. So in the Catholic system, in the Orthodox system, if salvation, getting justified, is basically a one-time thing. And anytime you commit a serious sin after that, you lose that justification until you repent of that sin, which is basically where you're sorry, you're tearfully sorry for your sin, and you confess it to God, and you don't want to do it anymore. You want to go forward and be better. And typically that would be done through confession to a priest, although there is some writings that suggest that if you were just really sorry about it, you were in a state of repentance, and you were to die, even though you didn't have a priest to absolve you, you could still go to heaven. But even the current Pope today, when he was the Archbishop of Buenos Aires in Chile during the Pinochet regime, where the dictator Pinochet would send out goon squads to murder and brutalize people that were critical of the regime, his political enemies. And of course, that's a sin. So, and of course, Pinochet was a very devout Catholic. So as soon as his goon squads had come back from killing people for the crime of disagreeing with him, of course, Bergoglio, the current pope, had the priests ready, standing by to absolve them of their sins, so that were they to die after that, they wouldn't have to go to hell. And yeah. Anyway, thanks, guys.
Woo-hoo. Thank you so very much, James. And all right.
Beamsy.
Woohoo! We are about to actually, we have already teed up our first call, but I do want to say that before we move into calls on the topic of does hell exist, in which we'll be taking one call at a time, we are looking for those specifically with viewpoints that differ from our own. In fact, we will give priority to those who do. However, we're also open to views who do agree with us and have something to say on the subject. Afterwards, we will be heading to Discord for some chatting with the community, the link of which is in the description below, and the link to join us in the live stream is in chat and will soon be on screen. And all right, before we switch into callers, I just want to send love at a billion comments. I'll be reading them also as I catch up. I see Mika and Biddy and Doorknob Head and Jupiter and Sea Science, Bubblegum Gun, God equals the square root of run, Bible Burner, always looking at self,
Kent Hovind out there.
PCA. Yeah, I know.
Doubting Thomas.
Doubting Thomas. Stripper Liquor. Alexandria, the Sinister Porpoise. Dave Gore, Farron Salas. Jenna,
the whole crew out there tonight.
What is up, everybody? I'll be not only dog. Woohoo! Not only will we be saying hi to everyone, but also feel free to tag James W. and myself with anything that we're talking about on the panel tonight about hell, or just your one-liners to James W. and myself at Amy Newman. And I see Pat. Woo! What is up, Pat?
We got
and
Richard
Grumpy.
out there too.
And Richard, do. I love all of you guys. And as we send out our love, I think, are you ready to bring on our first caller?
Well, what do you think about any other thoughts on hell before we get started? Anything else?
Sure. Well, I only know hell from movies, and in turn, like someone was explaining, just the Dante's version of it, because as we learn, the more we get into hell, it's just really this nebulous concept. The fire and the brimstone and everything is because they need a visual effects department. They needed to have something be a little bit more interesting, and so you had this carrot and stick formation form. I really dislike the concept of hell. I get a lot of flack from, people that really seem to subscribe to it of how good it is. You just know God, you just got to trust God. It may look horrible and evil right now, but just take it on faith.
Well, and then we get thrown this sometimes, which is not an argument for the truth of it. It's more of what I like to classify as the bummer arguments. Like you mean after starting that war and killing all those millions of people, Hitler just put a gun to his head and shot himself, and then that was it. He just died. Well,
Yeah.
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 So
I
that's
don't know.
it. He doesn't have to, no penalty. Yeah, no, that's it. He died.
Exactly. In fact, that is argument a la, you mean bad people just die? Yes, bad people just die. I
Right.
don't know what to say. Like they need to feel this
That they're getting
redemption, which
retribution, that they're
really
getting what they have
just,
coming to them.
to me, seems like revenge.
But
Which
yeah,
I get you. There are terrible, horrible people in the world that we need to hopefully separate from society, because they will only harm everyone that they come in contact to. But that's not the majority of people. That's not even most people. I mean, how many people are in this hell? The joke is always only the cool people.
well, I mean, it depends. Each sect has a different view on it, but I think the New Testament is clear that most people go to hell, because even Jesus himself says is narrow is the path that leads to eternal life, and be there few who find it, but wide is the path that leads to destruction. So he's telling us that most people who have ever lived will, their entire life, their entire purpose of existing is to live on this earth, die, and go to hell so God can torture them forever. And that's how God set it up. And are there some really bad people out there? I think I've said before that nobody is either all good or all bad. Everybody has good and bad qualities to them and different shades of gray. But even somebody really bad, like, to go, we already did Godwin's Law. So just to use that example, even if Hitler spent all the people who died in the war and in his persecutions and repressions and murders that he sponsored, even if he spent 1,000,000 years burning in hell for every single one of those, I don't know how many that would be, like 100 billion years in hell. But even if he did that, what do you got to say? He's just getting started. He's just getting warmed up. You know.
Well, it's a loop. It's endless, and we don't separate terrible people and then torture them. Like, that is what they're doing. It's not only you separating them, but now we need to start the torture. It's those aren't the good guys. The good guys do not torture people. There's no other way. If we're
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
Marvel and storybook logic, what's up, Best Show? What is
But
up, everyone?
and they, a lot of them, they have they've invented some unique doctrines to make this less bad than it is. Like, I think most Christians would say, well, I mean, kids don't go to hell, but show me where it says that in the Bible, that kids don't go to hell, because you won't find a passage that says that they don't. Or they might say, well, it's once you reach the age of reason, so it might be different for everybody. It might be 6, 7, 8, 9 for the individual, but once they cross that point, they're responsible. Okay, so say you're born into a culture that doesn't know anything about the Christian God, and you're 9 years old. You've reached the age of reason, but you've never heard the gospel before, and you die of a whatever. They would have to say, well,
Where
yeah,
you burning?
he's gone to burn in hell forever. Now the church fathers would run in and say, no, but they're not burning for their disbelief. No, they're not burning for that. They're burning for for their lack of charity and the things that they did, for the lies that they told, and just for being a crummy person overall. but it just
and
goes
still
back.
burning forever. Just as way, unless
Yeah.
I do believe there in Islam there are different levels of hell, but at least as far as I can tell in Christianity, the guy who like was just a little bit of a crappy version, and then we're just pulling all sorts of Godwin's law, and then Hitler are on the same level. Is the guy who stole bread, is he still being tortured forever? That's what I want to know.
Well, yes, but there are passages that would seem to allow the amount of suffering to be measured by how bad you were. So
A naughty boy.
in Catholicism, you would have like the part of hell with no fire, which is just an empty,
The
vapid,
removal of God.
nebulous existence, but they're not being actively punished. That would be where aborted babies would go in Catholicism, because they have they they can't go to heaven because of original sin that they would have, but they don't have any actual sins to be punished for. So they would go to limbo, which actually I've heard, like, there are traditionalist Catholic parents who have had babies that have terminal congenital defects. They're basically going to be born and then immediately die within minutes because they're just not going to be able to survive. And a lot of these traditionalist parents will go through the entire pregnancy and the birth process just
sure they don't go to hell.
Well, because in Catholicism, baptism saves you. So as soon as the baby comes out, they can
Just
sprinkle the
gotta
water
dunk
on the
that
head,
baby.
baptize, and then they don't have to go to limbo.
You
Then they
thought it
can
was
go.
Dunkin' Donuts. It's
Yeah,
Dunkin' Baby.
they can go to heaven at that point, because Catholicism, like a lot of the other, like some of the other churches, believe that baptism is essential for salvation. You cannot be saved without the water baptism
Gotta
ritual.
dunk them. It's the only way.
So,
and we're gonna read this comment, and then
Beamsy,
I feel like we could keep on talking about this, but it almost seemed like Beamsy wanted to give his
we can join it,
interpretation
get
of it.
him on.
So
Bring him into
C
the conversation.
Science says, Amy, the universe didn't have to be made to support an innumerable amount of conscious life. Why do you suppose it does? Now, hold on. The universe didn't have to be made to support. I mean, yeah, I would actually say yes. The universe, it could have gone in either direction. I would say I can imagine both a universe that is void, in which none of the heavier elements really gave rise to anything, and so you can't have carbon-based life forms. Maybe there is no just hydrogen-based life out there, and so conscious life doesn't exist. I can imagine. Yeah, or silica. You can't get silica. You can't get anything if gravity is too weak to coalesce everything together. But I can also imagine universes in which it's way better for life. Like, just there are just entire galaxies and solar systems, just nothing but life, just nothing but giant Goldilocks zones, and just it could be designed a lot better. It really doesn't look designed at all.
Looks like it's designed for life. Just because we know of one planet out of the countless trillions of planets in the universe that supports life does not mean the entire universe was fine-tuned for life. Now, granted, it's almost a given that there is other life out there. It happened here. We have to assume it almost certainly has happened other places. But be that as it may, it does appear to be not prolific, at least from what we can see so far. We haven't seen the evidence for it is debatable, but we haven't had hard evidence that could lead anybody to firmly say that there is life out there. Yeah. So
I saw a response. We'll bring that up. I saw Richard also has a comment too.
Science, look at that. You're missing the point. No, but the point is if we couldn't be here, we wouldn't be here, right? So the only reason that we're here is because we can be. Because if we couldn't be, we would not be.
And yeah, I don't assume more universes. I'm just saying I could easily imagine it going in other directions. I can imagine solar systems that were just all habitable, and the moons were habitable. Just everything was just geared towards creating life. And it's just not like that. I saw Richard say, James Wolfe, you're making bad Christian assertions again. This is going to make it hard for me to let others talk on the show. Well, we're sending love to you,
You think
Richard.
I'm James Wolfe? He might think I'm James Wolfe. I'm James.
Oh, there is both a James W and a James Wolfe. We love James Wolfe out there. We love all. My joke is always, there's so many Jameses in my life. Shout out to the James on my bowling team. If he is listening to this, he has a YouTube channel that I need to get and shout out because he does awesome music. And there's James at Modern Day Debate. Oh, the Jameses that we love. But it's like the Rickest Rick. You can be the Jamesiest James. So
there you go.
The Sinister Porpoise says burning in hell forever is what programmers call an infinite loop. God is a script kiddie. I know. He's just cheating. He's just basically copy and pasta in some programming. Explains so much about the universe. Check the comment section. See if someone else did his homework.
Okay. That's okay. Don't worry about it.
Richard says yes, and auto suggest in my confusion. I meant James W on the show.
I'm making rapid fire assertions, so I tend to do that.
But yeah, sending love everybody out there. I see Brainbug, Jupiter, Doomver, everyone out there. I keep on sending love. Mika, Dale. We are about to bring in our first caller, but I really do want to put this up here because we're looking for the people who really do disagree with us. So if you couldn't see it on screen, I'll actually show it.
But hell, while you're doing that, I'll just point out that like hell is it's really problematic, I think, for a lot of Christian theology because a lot of the Christian apologists and they'll give this long explanation of how much God values free will, right? Hey, he doesn't want to force you to worship him. He wants you to have free will, even though we know that when he needs to, when he wants to alter people's free will, he has no problem doing it. Bible said he's going to send people strong delusions to make them believe something they would not otherwise believe, so he can then punish them for believing that thing that he made them believe. That's what the New Testament says. But the idea that, well, I mean, Amy, he only wants people to worship him forever who want to worship him. So if you don't want to, I mean, God's not going to force you to do that, Amy. No pressure on you.
None.
If you don't want to do that and you just want to go and be burned and tortured forever, you just go have fun with that. And that's like
you do you.
Yeah, that's kind of like a rapist logic. Like, hey, I mean, I only said I'll kill her if she doesn't. She said yes. She said yes. Once I held the knife to her throat, she said yes. What are you gonna do about it? I mean,
I had a gun to her, to a person's head. It's amazing how much they start to agree with me.
Oh, yeah, they wanted to give me that money. I wasn't robbing. They freely gave me all their
donation.
Right. I mean, I did point a gun at them and tell them I'm going to shoot them if they don't. But, yeah.
And because I keep on saying one more thing, but because I saw Kill Doggy, I just want to send a shout out. We are looking for both mods on our Facebook and our Twitch stream. Once again, you can see that Twitch stream link. I'm sending it right there. But we are going to bring in Beamsy, and I implore, I see science. It is really, we love the spice. I know a lot of channels are like, come on and join us or don't even talk. No, we like having our theist brothers and sisters enjoy just chatting, or if you're cooking or going to bed and you don't want to join us, just relax, have a good time. But for those theists who do want to show us what is up, please, the StreamYard link right there. And we already have our first caller. We're going in. We're talking, does hell exist? And we got our first caller to help us find out. Woohoo! What is up, Beamsy?
Oh, from where I'm sitting, looks like a ceiling.
Damn, we're off to a good start. You seem to be correct. But I hope you're doing well. We are calling me skeptical tonight, and we are asking, does hell exist? What are your thoughts?
The aspect you'd have to define first is the afterlife, because in some cases hell is a separate entity within it, in other cases it's the same thing. If you research through both the biblical aspects of all the Abrahamic religions, hell has been represented in many different ways. Dante's, as many people have put, the multiple different ways where everyone is thrown in. Catholicism has 3 levels. They've got purgatory, heaven, and hell. And then you've got aspects of cleansing aspects, which you sometimes see from the Old Testament, in which everyone goes there, but you're there to be cleansed. So you're not there forever. So it's also a matter of, if you take those aspects, sometimes the aspect of the afterlife does encounter something that you would actually define as hell. Sorry?
No, go ahead.
Another aspect of it is hell is nothingness, an ending in which your consciousness is there, but there's nothing involved with it. So you're aware, but there's nothing. And that would probably be the worst aspect of hell.
Well, I've heard people say that the worst part of hell, the greatest torment, is separation from God. The fact that you're internally separated from God. So, yeah.
Like I said, there's many aspects. Within the aspects of the beliefs I follow, it's more of a matter of, it's a place that everyone goes to actually literally be cleansed and to assist with teaching a lesson to the people who come after you. But at the same time, there's also the possibility that it might not actually exist.
So it has a purpose anyway, other than just inflicting suffering.
The purpose of it is actually just to cleanse, and it is,
right.
There's no heaven, there's no hell in that aspect. It's just the afterlife, and the suffering, as you would call it, is more of an aspect of a cleansing thing to actually allow everyone to learn from your past mistakes. And it's more of a representation that you can actually take into reality, but it doesn't exist within reality. So it might exist, it might not. It all depends on if there is something beyond life. And again, that's not something that we can define, because it's something outside of the box that we live in.
Well, I want to just put a pin. Are you telling us what you believe are the different takes on hell, or are you also saying that you believe this?
I believe that the last one I was mentioning, the one that I was saying that I follow in my aspects of Celtic, is one that I believe would be the way that it would go, because if there is something beyond life, it wouldn't be a place for either constant paradise or constant torment. It would be somewhere to go for further existence.
Well, we could talk about that, because I have a problem with an afterlife, the problem of an afterlife. I find it's a very unmotivated concept, as in, I think that life is motivated to stay alive. I think that consciousness actually helps in that. And so when the life function ceases to be, I don't understand why. And why questions, they normally have to get put into a how or a what, but I guess my question is why? Why an afterlife?
It's more of a possibility. So 16 years ago, I was blown up when I was on deployment with the Australian Navy, and I ended up with 22 kilos of metal and plastic holding me together. I have no semblance of growing up or anything, so I don't really have a a history or a growth per se. Bubblegum, I'm not an atheist. I'm a pagan.
Yep. I'm just going to put that out there. Basically, anything Beamsy and I are going to probably talk about tonight is going to be an intellectual discussion because Beamsy, we already know, just shouting out, sending love to all of those theists out there that not only are support science, but are team science. But yes, just have to put that asterisk on there.
With the aspect of it, you've got to, it's defining God with the big G and God with little g, because God with the big G exists outside of our understanding and our existence and has no reference within reality. And God with the little g is the ones that you read in the storybooks, and he's one that's limited in power and scope by those books.
So, well, I think we'll go back to Afterlife for just a second, but let me explore this big G, little g, because I always find that distinction kind of funny. It's almost like the micro and macro evolution thing, because in my head, Thor and Yahweh are equivalent categories. It's just the difference is just what they do, what their powers are. One creates thunder and lightning, and one creates universes, but basically they're both gods. It only gets more nebulous when they try and, I don't know what the term is. I don't know if it's whitewash. They try and retcon a lot of it in Christianity and Islam. To make it seem like it's this nebulous wom wom wom. Do you believe then you believe in a big G?
No, I believe in the possibility of one because it's outside of our existence. I'm not going to deny it, but at the same time, it exists outside of reality, which is why I can accept naturalism in that, but at the same time recognize that a lot of the stuff that you hear, like in the examples that you gave with Yahweh and Thor, Odin, Yathor, Allah, etc., they are just constructions, which is why they get referred to as God with little g, because they are just something that we made. That's why that's why it's a big difference between the two.
Okay. So it's the possibility of a big G. In fact, in that way, I would almost, tell me if I'm classifying you wrong, as an agnostic theist.
That would be a better way of putting it, yes. It's, like I said, labels are all over the place. I just refer to myself as a Celt. That's just the idea of what I follow. And I represent things as what's plausible and probable. I don't actually say, you can't prove a negative.
Okay. Well, let's go back to seeing. I'm not sure if it is proving a negative, but let's try and afterlife. What is it? What is it about? Is there something about life that you think needs to transcend or keep on going? What is it about life that? Because that's what I wrap my head around. Like, I think in my head, the desire for an afterlife is just our consciousness metaphorically sweating, realizing that it's not always going to exist one day. And, but I don't see any, I believe in a naturalistic reason for consciousness. And so I struggle with the concept of an afterlife because it sounds like a free meal. The as the saying goes, and I don't believe in free meals.
Free lunch, right?
Yeah.
But how would that work? Is there a soul or?
That's the issue. Do you understand have you heard of the Gaia principle?
I haven't heard of the Gaia. I know of Gaia. I know of the Mother Nature type of.
The essence of everything comes from Gaia and returns to Gaia, that sort of thing.
I'm interested. Tell us more.
Gaia is these are very old beliefs. Everything on this planet has a soul, and the well of the souls is
Could we
referred
just
to as
stop
Gaia.
you for 1 second? When you
Shoot.
say everything has a soul, do you mean every living thing, or do you
No.
mean everything? That includes the rock.
The rocks, the trees, the wind, the mountains, the lava, the sea, everything. Every literal thing has an aspect of a soul, and it's made up from the pool of souls that is actually Gaia itself. And anytime it's destroyed, the souls return back to Gaia to enrich it, and then anything born from it takes a little bit from Gaia. That's what it's similar to the aspect of you are no longer yourself in the afterlife.
But see, I have to break that part in a few ways, because in one interpretation, I could almost agree with you, because one day we will die, and then whatever bacteria or worms get to our body, that is what we are going to become. But it detaches, first of all, any notion that consciousness really matters, or that your consciousness is going somewhere afterwards, or that you will continue to be yourself. And that's even before we get into everything essence. What do you think about that, though? Because I mean, I could naturally interpret some of what you said.
My line of thinking, the way I've come to this is I don't understand my own personality, and no one actually recognizes me from before my accident. So I am not the same person, but at the same time, I am.
See, but I would almost say that's evidence a soul doesn't exist.
Not
Like
necessarily
if
a
your
soul.
or if there was something that, I mean, it's basically saying that, I don't know, whatever you want to say, your soul, your essence, you could
The
fill in the words
you,
for
the
me,
you
but
that
you're
makes
basically
you.
saying the accident destroyed that. And I can only understand that from a biological sense.
From a biological sense, I'm pretty much screwed. But from
No,
an
I mean,
aspect, from a socio-political aspect of my personality, my way of thinking, my chain of thoughts, I've gone from a very bad person, is an easiest way to putting it, to the person that I am, which I try and live up to at least a degree of expectations within myself.
well,
I'm
glad that you are a better person.
well, I don't want to say what I would be saying to you from if I was here 20 years ago. And that's not a very nice person that would talk to you.
But see, I could completely understand, accept, and appreciate that. But that sounds. I always say there's a difference in role playing games for intelligence and wisdom. There's a reason, and it doesn't matter how smart you are. Sometimes you have to get 10, 20 plus years of experience.
But the other aspect of it, there is something that seems to be there that defines us. It might be there or it might not. It might be an illusion or a delusion of my own behalf, and I can accept that, which is why I'm not going to say that 100% it exists, and I'm not going to say 100% it doesn't exist, because there are things I don't understand. It also stems from my inability to actually. Part of my brain was destroyed. I actually have no ability to feel emotions. I don't get angry, sad, I don't get happy or anything else like that. I just don't care. I am very much aware that when my physical body ceases to function, me as a person will cease to be. But is there something more to me that I do not understand that exists beyond me? I don't know. There could be something that actually has driven me to be who I am.
See, but here's where I agree, and then we separate. I don't think that I can claim definitely that there is nothing else to us, but I don't think there is. I think that consciousness, as wonderful as a mechanism as it is, I think it is equal or analogous to digestion in that it's a mechanism. It's a mechanism of the larger organism. And although it doesn't sound appealing to think of us as the same thing as our body digesting food, it's also a mechanism like our body healing after being cut and forming scabs. And so it's just very. I like I said, I agree with some of your points. It's just that, I disagree that I don't think Iraq has
Oh, I was
any
just using
type
that
of.
as an example of what Gaia
Sure.
is, so that way you understand it. That way,
Absolutely.
when what I'm going to say after this, it'll make a bit more sense.
Okay. I mean, and we've had lovely pantheists on that think that, the universe is conscious or that everything is
He's out
God.
there in chat.
Yes, that's a love.
Hey, Jen.
What would it? Well, I guess let's take us back to the hell and the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you would say you definitely more than 50%, more than a coin flip, believe is true about an afterlife?
Unfortunately, no, because literally a lot of these things with my spirituality is literally a coin flip. It's a matter of it's a 50-50 chance, because I'm not going to follow the aspect of, oh, I might as well believe because what have I got to lose? But it's more of the aspect that if I start following that principle, I might miss something of the big picture. So these are possibilities, and I will not say that they will exist, but I can prove what people have said doesn't exist. That's
Okay.
You can prove a negative, or
no, you can disprove their conjectures.
okay.
If someone makes a claim, you can actually say that no, that claim is incorrect because of this. That's where it's not a matter of disproving a negative. It's a matter of someone's making a positive claim, like in the example of
Right.
Dante's with his aspect of hell. Yeah, the 9 circles of hell, and as a physical aspect, and you go through the 9 to unless you end up in purgatory.
Dun dun dun. It's also, side note, it's just why I don't like notions of karma. I think karma, just like hell, it always sounds good when you first hear it, and then you're like, ooh, that's gonna cause a lot of pain. That means that all the people that have crappy lives, you're saying they did something in a past life, and different subject,
Does
but
it work from
similar. And
life
yeah.
to life? I didn't know that.
That comes closer to Hinduism and the Wheel of Life.
And so I'm just gonna push towards subjects. Who knows? We'll see if we disagree or agree. Is it Celticism? Do Celtics have a view? Celtics. Do Celtics have a view of the afterlife?
It's an aspect of, the best way I can describe it without speaking in Gaelic is, it's a spark of the divine, that the evil that it has actually accomplished in its life is cleansed and then returns to allow others to learn from it.
But do they? Okay. Do they get cleansed? Is there an actual? Do they go back? You're saying?
No, there's no going back. It's all one way. They're gone. Their existence is elsewhere. It's beyond, outside of our existence. But their experiences that they've had through their life is passed on through their generations, and it's up to the following generations to either learn from their mistakes or repeat them and go through the same procedure.
Also, I see love out there. Sending love to Pseudonym. You are absolutely not. We can see you. Not only that, but if you would like to come and join us in a little bit, we are come at the link in chat. Our call-in show, we are going one person at a time, but feel free.
One by one.
One by one. So I'm trying to find where we disagree.
It's the aspect of the spark of the divine. That's where we disagree, because
okay,
I have the aspect that there's a possibility of something called the spark of the divine. Like I said, it's not an exact translation, but it's an easier way to represent it. Whereas
so what would the spark of the divine?
It's what makes up the part of you that you cannot comprehend, the part of you that actually brings the consciousness in. It's yeah.
I don't mean to make faces.
I know.
Consciousness is my my shtick,
Fucking
so I
our
can't help
language.
myself
Yeah,
because I'm so obsessed with it.
Whereas in me, I don't have any of the emotions to actually assist with that sort of thing, so I can't actually put an emotional
Hey.
context into it. So I have to
I
approach it from pure logic.
I completely understand. The reason I would say I am emotionally attached to it is because I actually, it's been a bit retcon because I was starting to become obsessed with consciousness, and then I learned I had epilepsy. And so now my go-to about anything dealing with consciousness, it's been like a scalpel. It has cut through a lot of the nonsense because we want to think of consciousness as something really special up until we need something taken care with our own brains. And then we want a really good physiological, naturalistic answer, like I believe I'm driven to. And so I use that, like I said, to try and get a barometer for people's view of consciousness, because I have a very simple definition of consciousness, which is the spectrum from awakeness or alertness to non, in which that is the mechanism that controls the organism. And so being not conscious would be the off.
Yeah, whereas in my aspect, it's 80 to 90% of it can be explained physically. You can actually go through and see how the brain works. But I don't know. I cannot explain it. It's more of a...
Hey, that's always a
I'm
good
trying
answer.
to fully understand it. And there's probably a 5 or a 10%, and that's why it's referred to as a spark. And like I said, the literal translation is the part that drives us into being who we are. Yeah, like I said, it doesn't make any much sense if I try and translate it.
No, and like I said, I just want to learn. At least you're giving us meat. We oftentimes get people who obfuscate. We ask them clear answers or clear questions, and we get politicians in return. So
No,
at least you're telling us we believe.
I don't mess around like that. If you ask me a question, I will give you as much of an honest answer as I can. That's part of my founding in the aspect of reality. Anything within reality should be within reality. That's why I cannot accept things like Yahweh or any of the other small gods. Yeah. Because anything that has an inference on reality should be able to be proven.
I agree. I think we should only believe in
some
things
indication
that
of
have
it.
evidence.
And because of the fact being I don't understand why I am such a different person, it sort of drives me to find out why. And no one can really give me a good explanation. It's just my pure curiosity.
Sure.
Am I afraid of death? No, because when I die, I know my consciousness is going to be the end of it. There might be a little bit of me that goes on to do something else, but it's not going to be me.
And see, I think it just breaks down. I just think that the way that we can ever achieve any sort of, I wouldn't call it everlasting or eternal or anything like that, but have children. That seems to be the only way for our genes to survive after death.
Yeah, that's our only real difference. The fact being that I accept that there might be something outside of our existence, but it only makes up a minuscule part of who or what we are. Whereas in everything else within reality, I'm quite sure that we accept the same thing.
I would say there might be. We just don't have any good evidence.
We don't have any evidence to say yes or no, and that's
right.
Because my own experience, not evidence, because experiences are not evidence. My own experiences are muddled and confused. because of that, it probably is because making me muddled and confused, which is probably why I have that basis of it and my aspect of the curiosity of it, because I can't explain it.
I just think it's silly for, we watch these theists gleefully squandering what little time they know they get to exist, hoping for this delusion of grandeur that they get to live forever when there's just no rational reason to think that's the case. Everything we have before us indicates that all we get is this little time to exist on this earth. And you want to think maybe there's something else. Okay, maybe we don't have any reason to conclude that, but don't waste what you know you get for
Oh,
something you have
I don't
no.
waste things, which is
Oh,
why I
I'm not
spend
saying
more time
you are.
studying. But
No,
when it comes
not
down to
you in
it, yeah.
particular. But you're traditional theists, you're more Abrahamic faith adherents.
And then I just have one or two more questions, Beamsy. And then if you want, we'll do a finish up statement for what you want just on the topic of hell itself. But you said, and thank you for joining us, by the way. We love our atheist brothers and sisters, especially ones that love
Rational,
science.
reasonable.
I know.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Rational, reasonable.
I'm sort of a bit of a weird one because of that small little hindrance of it. I'm not fully an atheist, but I'm close enough.
Well, and can I tell you that in many ways, people like you trigger the creationist way more. I have found they'll make statements like even the atheists. So we're like, oh, okay, man, you guys are.
It's the same thing with what Bubbles said. He said, I don't understand paganism. I don't think even pagans fully understand paganism because there are so many denominations of it.
That may be true.
Well, you've got Wiccas, they're pagans, and they have a completely different belief system to me. Pagan basically means old belief. And yeah, I can list thousands of them.
And that's,
Catch-all seems to be.
That's how it worked back in, in the time before people communicated over long distance. It was individual peoples in their own pocket of the world coming up with their own beliefs and rationalities and, kind of developing not completely isolated, but much more isolated than we would get today. I think we've seen religion develop like that, because even like different sects of the same religion, just separated for a time, would begin to diverge and evolve, so to say, come up with their own doctrines and nuances based on the individual circumstances that they had to deal with in their, region.
I'd like to answer Carol the one that she actually asked, they actually asked in the question. The ability to actually study astrophysics and geology comes from my acceptance of reality. Everything that I actually can see and understand and accept is within the basal assumptions. That's where my view on reality comes in. The spirituality is a very, very, very small spark of what is left of you has a possibility of existing on, but your consciousness no longer exists. There could be like a 1% to 5% or a 10% part of your personality that is actually where you as an individual comes from. Is it real? Possibly, maybe not.
Can I just pause that?
Sure.
I believe that consciousness is an emergent property, and we hear that a lot. What does emergent mean? Meaning that it comes, a single whole comes from its parts. As in, I think everything that we call consciousness, I think we could actually label and get a good holding off. And most of them has to do with things like sensory organs, touch, smell, sight, but also dozens of other things. How much weight your bladder can hold, the moisture of droplets on the hairs of you. All of these different sensations are going on that we call into a single unit.
There's
And
also the aspect of socio-evolution where we evolved as a social hierarchy.
sure.
And that's, but like I said, if it can all be explained, I can accept that and just go, yep, my beliefs were founded in bunk and my own delusions, and I can move on with it and be happy with it. But I'm not sure. That's why until something can actually show that, yes, what I represent is just my own little delusion, there's this possibility, and I don't mind the idea of it.
I would say what really does it for me is that we know that, like, take something that's very integral or very at the foundational level of people is something like their sexuality, their sexual orientation, and the fact that we know that that can be altered in people when they have traumatic brain injuries or brain tumors. And even that, which is fundamental to most people's existence, can be altered. It's not wired into the software part of the brain, but it can be affected by the hardware. So I just don't see where there's room for this invisible pilot that's outside of, that's maybe not connected to the brain, but it's just using the brain as a control conduit, but is really its own entity somewhere else. I just don't see how that would even work.
You're overemphasizing it. It's not actually anything. It's not part of what actually has control. As what Amy said, our consciousness is an emerging principle. It's like it's part of the spark that caused the fire, but it's not the only cause of it. It's a small spark, and only the spark is what's going to return. That's why your consciousness doesn't continue on, and you as an individual don't carry on. It's more of something that it wouldn't be integral. It's like I said, it's difficult to explain because it's not an important part of it. It's just part of who it is, and it's part of the whole package. In the same way of, like I gave the example, that one spark won't start an entire fire. It takes multiple sparks, but that one spark is still part of it.
Right, I guess so. It speaks to more like the classical theist definition of like a soul. I guess yours is a little bit more, your idea of that is maybe more nuanced or, less stringently defined. So I guess that would be a little maybe different.
That's the problem, because it's not there's no real soul involved, because there's no whole that makes up your mind. It's more of just part of the founding part of the mind. That's the only part of it.
Can I break up two separate things, though? Is this a spark of life, a spark of consciousness? You said a divine spark, but what are we actually? Because I find those two get sometimes lumped together when they're really not the same. Most of life isn't conscious.
That's why it's referred to as a spark of the divine. It's an aspect of consciousness. It's a part of the building blocks of it.
But you say it's part of consciousness. But if
in the same way that spark that starts the fire is part of the fire.
But so for a lot of life, for at least half of life that we've known, 2 billion or as years, no consciousness that we would identify as consciousness existed. Was there still that spark even when there was no consciousness?
Don't know, because of the fact being I don't know how to actually represent it in a well enough manner that anyone else could accept it. It's just something that it comes from the Celtic teachings and just the way I feel about it. It's just like I said, it's obscure and weird.
That's okay. Like I said, we just love the fact that you came on and actually talked about what you believed in and a little bit of why, which is really what we care about the most. But before I let you have a final statement, I just want one more question for you. You said you were about 80-90% sure, but there was like this 10%. Is there anything, or what would it take for you to actually be convinced that it's a justified true belief that there is no afterlife?
Oh, that will be answered when I die.
Well, so you're saying that will be answered, but you don't think, but while you're living, is there anything that could convince you that there is no afterlife?
I don't know. That's the thing. If I knew, I would actually
I'll take it.
Yeah, that's. How do you know how to build a wall if you don't know what a wall is?
I think I see what you're going at, but it says in love, but okay. I really did have a great time talking with you, Beamsy.
Thank you, Beamsy.
We have been talking. Does hell exist? Do you have any final words on the topic?
No, I've pretty much expressed everything I wanted to, and I'm glad at least I confused you enough.
No, I thought it was a great conversation, to be continued for many more, including the ones in which you trigger young Earth creationists.
I do that very well.
There's a few of them in chat. You seem to have.
I know. You guys, young Earth creationists, come one, come all if you'd like. I mean, you can hang out and chat. We love all of our viewers, but
Amy won't bite you.
Unless you're into that. But we're actually about to get the Randolph Richardson in to talk with us about Does Hell Exist? Beamsy, thank you so very much for joining us.
Beamsy.
That's for Danya.
Mwah. Woo-hoo! What is up?
Hey, Randolph.
Randolph Richardson. I hope you are doing well tonight. We are calling me skeptical on Does Hell Exist? I hope you're well, and I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I just will deviate a little bit. Hello, James and Amy. James, I think you did fantastically well in your debate with Kent Hovind recently.
Oh, thank you so much, Randolph.
You performed with the utmost excellence. You did great. I was really quite happy to see the way you handled them.
Coming from you, that means a lot, because you always do very well in your debates, and you're one of the better debaters I think we have on the
wow.
atheist.
Thank you.
You're a good debater. No, your debates are always very, very good, and you're always respectful and polite, and you always stick to the topic. So
I try.
Like Oz said, you're the godfather of atheism, but I definitely appreciate the feedback from you.
I appreciate that. Thanks, James. I really think you did well, and you presented well, and anybody who conducts himself reasonably and professionally in these kind of encounters is, I feel, also helping to present the atheism demographic in one of the best possible lights. So I appreciate you for that too. Thank you.
Thanks, Randolph.
So does hell exist? Well, to certain people on this planet, given the way they are forced to live, or they have no choice but to live because options aren't available to them, life could seem like a hell in itself. But I know that's not what you're asking. I'm not convinced that it exists, but the South Park depiction of a lake of fire with condominiums around it seems to make it a little bit easier to take, I won't get into Dante's Inferno, but I am going to go over something really quickly, as I mentioned to Amy in the private chat. This comes from somebody who calls himself the Science Magpie, and the source is Applied Optics from issue 11, I think, 1972. So this is an old magazine, but the way they've done this, they've cited Bible passages as well to support their reasoning. So the caption is, "Heaven is hotter than hell," and they point out that heaven is 525 degrees Celsius, which is 977 degrees Fahrenheit, and that hell is not as hot. It is 445 degrees Celsius, which is 833 degrees Fahrenheit. I know we've got audience members who are familiar with just one or the other system, so it's good to mention both. But I will stick with metric through all of this, which is the Celsius readings. The temperature of heaven is described in the Bible. Moreover, the light, and this is from Isaiah 30:26. It's moreover, the light of the moon shall be as the light of the sun, and the light of the sun shall be sevenfold as the light of 7 days. So the reasoning is, thus, heaven receives from the moon as much radiation as the earth does from the sun, and in addition, 7 times 7, 49 times as much as the earth does from the sun, or 50 times in all, roughly. Using the Stefan Boltzmann fourth power law of radiation, H divided by E altogether to the power of 4 equals 50, where E is the absolute temperature of the earth, 300 degrees Kelvin is which is 273 divided by 27. This gives H, the absolute temperature of heaven, as 798 degrees Kelvin absolute, or 525 degrees Celsius. Now, the temperature of hell as described in the Bible. Now, this is from Revelations 21:8. But the fearful and unbelieving, ellipsis, shall have their part in the lake, which beneath the fire and brimstone, which burneth with fire and brimstone, shall have their part in the lake, which burneth with fire and brimstone. So the reasoning is, a lake of molten brimstone, sulfur, means that its temperature must be at or below boiling point, which is 440.6 degrees Celsius. Above that point, it would be a vapor, not a lake. We have then temperature of heaven, 525 degrees Celsius, and a temperature of hell less than 445 degrees Celsius. Therefore, heaven is hotter than hell. Thank you to the Science Magpie for putting this together, and to the publication Applied Optics, issue 11 from 1972 for this wonderful little breakdown. I can send you the meme a little later so you can put it up on the show if you like, Amy.
I guess God has
Absolutely.
one hell of an AC system up there in heaven, so he keeps it nice and cool. But
Oh, yeah. And we're not even covering Dante's Inferno, which is a whole different idea, where you've got the 7 levels, I guess it is, and they kind of put it in a triangle formation to show the different levels and of how the more serious crimes are at a different level. The fact that they have to have a hierarchy tells us that there is a challenge to manage all these different people who are suffering, and so it sounds like things are complicated. I guess Dante was in favor of hierarchies. The idea with heaven, however, is that it's just one level playing field for everyone, kind of like communism. But of course, there's one person in charge, or one being in charge, which is just like communism.
now,
As it's been practiced.
there are Christians who do believe that the different people will have different stations in heaven. So based on how good of a Christian you were, and some people hold that position, but only to the millennial kingdom, which, as you probably know, is a hypothetical kingdom that Jesus will set up on the earth for 1,000 years after the rapture. And before we go to heaven, he'll set up his kingdom, rule the world for 1,000 years directly, and then he'll let the devil out of the pit one more time, and then he'll finally be done with the devil. But so the better Christian you are, you might have a higher station during that kingdom. Then there are some who think that would continue into heaven, and so like the Billy Grahams and the Creflo Dollars are going to be at the top of the hierarchy, and the run-of-the-mill pew warmers are just going to be the dregs of society in heaven, just wandering around the streets of gold, worshiping God.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a very good point. Amy, I sent that meme to you in Discord. So if you check Discord, you can save it and you can present it up here if you like. that I was kind of reading from earlier, in case people would like to see it. The idea with heaven and hell I find quite peculiar too, because my understanding from talking to various Christians, and not all Christians agree with this, I'll state this right off the bat, but there are many Christians who've argued this to me, and so I'm going to stick with that portion of the Christian demographic. When people go to hell, they are punished. That's the one. Wow, you're fast, Amy. So
that's why they pay me the big bucks.
Hey, there's the first half, and if you scroll down, people can see the second half. It's
Oh, okay.
very well presented, I thought. So when people go to hell, they of course retain all their memories because that's part of their suffering, and they're punished for eternity. And
They have to know that they deserve to be there for all the bad things they did.
Yeah, and going on even 4 million years would be cruel and unusual punishment, way beyond the line for that. And this is
5 minutes would be cruel and unusual punishment. But
that's true. But let's say somebody tortured somebody for 25 years on planet Earth here. So
okay.
I can see a lot of people saying 25 years for them in hell makes sense. You know, there is some kind of reasoning to that kind of coincides, you know, is what I'm going to say. I wouldn't say it's properly justified, but I would say it definitely coincides. People will see the balance there and see it as reasonable. So, and even a mass murderer who may have killed 1,000 people. So what they get? They may get. Let's say they get 100,000 years in hell for that. 100 years per person, kind of thing. Oh, cat alert! Cat alert! Cat alert! I usually type it in the chat.
I know. Yeah.
So this is still 1 million years is still a lot, or even let's say 1 trillion years. That's still ridiculous, and none of these numbers
many times the age of the universe,
anywhere close to eternity. I'll put out a number like 100 octillion. It's nowhere close to eternity, although it's a heck of a lot longer than a trillion years.
Quadrillion, yeah.
Yeah, quadrillion. Then it's but octillion is way up there.
Decadocillion.
Yeah, you got it. You know the big numbers too. So they have, and I bet your cat knows them as well. I hope the cat knows them.
Of course,
I'm sure he does.
All right. So anyway, the thing is, the person goes to hell. They get punished. What is the point of this other than being a deterrent that's simply reported to people who can't verify it? You know, nobody's going to learn to be better after punishment because there's nothing after it. So it seems to me like a complete waste of resources to go on and on like that. That's a lot of maintenance.
For the glory of God, for his own glory.
But what these Christians also tell me is about heaven. So you go to heaven and somebody goes to heaven, let's say, and I say, okay, so they've had some trauma in their history. They were severely injured because somebody inflicted something on them that's horrible, and it's scarred their memories for life, and it's something that they've had trouble coping with throughout their life. But for the most part, they've been able to live their life. This is not an uncommon scenario for people who've suffered some kind of serious trauma. Now, apparently when they go to heaven, they lose the traumatic memories. They lose all the bad stuff, and all they're left with is to be in a state of bliss without those bad memories, without that trauma. That sounds to me like the person isn't who they are anymore. They're not themselves anymore. They are now somebody different. My memories have influenced who I have become over time. I know this for certain. I've witnessed a very traumatic scene when I was a kid, and it resulted in a death, and because it was a murder, and it was very, very serious. I've found a way to cope with it, therapy and all this, and it's fine. But it's also desensitized me in some ways to violence and things like that. This is also helped me to realize the importance of being respectful to people, and part of the reason why I have proposed an alternative to the golden rule, which I call the golden preference, which is to strive to treat others in accordance to their preferences. and which is quite compatible with heterosexual intimacy and with people who want to be treated in different ways. And the golden rule fails in that. So anyway, these things are very important, how we think about dealing with other people. Now, in heaven, the idea is you lose all that. Because the reason this came up is because I asked them, if a family member goes to heaven and I'm in hell and they want to see me, can they come down and visit me in hell? The answer is no, but they wouldn't want to because they're in a state of bliss. Sounds pretty heartless. Right. Now, if we take this even further, where is human progress going to take us, say, 100,000 years from now? Let's say we've survived and we've got technological advancement and we're able to travel around like in Star Trek, maybe even faster than that, and safely and comfortably, like we're sitting in our living room watching the stars whip by on the screen. It'd be fantastic at super light speed, above light speed. So if you're in heaven and you can't go out and visit anybody, you're stuck in heaven and you're watching all this progress come along. You're not able to go out and explore the rest of the universe with the rest of the people that you used to be a part of. This is like, to me, it's almost like a torture hidden in disguise, but it's okay. You're in a state of bliss. You won't notice. So,
well, and that's the thing. I've made this point before. A lot of times these Christians, especially, they'll talk about free will and how important that is to God. And they have different versions of, like, will you have your memories in heaven? Will you not? Or will you have them, but God will just make it so that they're not traumatic, so that they don't cause you any troubles. You'll be, I guess, numb to them. But
I'd rather be myself.
Yeah.
So I'd rather be myself in hell than in heaven and lose part of who I am. Absolutely. And also it won't be so hot. Sorry, carry on.
Well, no, and the thing is that you ask people, and they all say, will you be able to sin in heaven? And they'll all say, no, you cannot sin in heaven. So their actual state is to get to a state where they no longer have free will, where they will be a mindless automaton praising God forever, because that's the only thing they can do. But don't worry, God will make it so they love every minute. They will be having the time of their life. They will love every second of it. There's nothing else they'd rather be doing. They'll be just like the seraphim from the Psalms, whose the only thing they ever do with their 6 wings is fly above the throne of God and say, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole world is full of his glory. That's all they do 24/7 forever, kind of a mindless, useless existence, but they do it for the glory of God. So they do it with all their heart, I guess.
And I noticed you were careful to specify, just as I did, prefacing things, saying that this is the view of a number of significant number of Christians. Is not the view of all Christians.
Not necessarily all, but
yeah, there are Christians I've also met who tell me that that's not how heaven and hell work. They've got a different idea on it, and it's interesting that there's so many different ideas, even within a religion, because you've got different denominations, and then even within the same denomination, there's people with different views. It's a human thing, right?
So we have it. Eventually, it's in the queue to get to, but it's been pushed back a couple times. But there are people who are going around claiming that God has actually taken them to hell and kind of given them a tour so they can come back and write books and do talks and collect money, telling everybody else how bad it is. And there's a few characters out there peddling stories like that. And some of the things that they say, well, first of all, they all disagree with each other, of course. They all have their own slightly nuanced version of what hell is according to their trip of it. And you even had this all the way back in the Fatima encounters with the Virgin Mary at the children in Fatima, Portugal, where the children say that the Virgin Mary took them on a tour of hell so they could see what would await the wretched sinners, just before the Virgin basically told one of the kids that, oh, by the way, you're almost certainly going to go here, so have fun with that, Fernando.
Yeah, and some of them are pro-Dante and some of them are anti-Dante. Oh, that sounded funny, actually. I think I wasn't expecting that. So I think, I'm not convinced that hell exists. Sorry, Amy, go ahead. You want to bring your next guest?
Not at well, yes at all, but I do want to just ask your final thoughts. Thank you so very much, Randolph. We have been
Raging
talking.
atheist back there.
Does hell exist?
Not as far as I can tell. If we're talking about the Christian hell, or the Islamic hell for that matter, or other hells from other religions.
Oh.
Yep.
So if Islamic hell is real, Randolph will be down there putting up Pride Month stuff all over the place.
Like well, I'm sure I won't be the only one because I'll be in good company, so I'll be helping with that.
the Rainbow Kaaba.
Every Pride Parade I've been to has been nothing but a thoroughly delightful party.
There you go.
Oh,
a celebration of diversity.
That makes me basically want to get my sign. I can't help it, but
come to Vancouver when we get the Pride Parades coming up again. Both of you.
Sounds gay. I'm in.
She's in.
Love the colors on that.
Woohoo! And all right, the Randolph Richardson.
Thank you, Randolph.
So very much for joining us. You can find him at youtube.com. Randolph Richardson. That's OLF, not like the spell check will have you believe. Thank you so very much, Randolph. We love having you.
Thank you, Amy. And thank you, James. And thank you, James Cat.
And the producer of the show, Gizmo. Thank you so very much, Gizmo. And all right, send in love. And we have the Raging Atheist backstage. We are bringing him on to call me skeptical because we are talking does hell exist?
Talk about
Raging Atheist. That's
who's hellbound.
Woohoo! What is up, Rage?
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Doing all right.
Pretty good.
Yeah, as I was saying backstage, I just got done streaming, and I saw Amy was live, and like Amy's always in my side chats, and I never get to come on. So I was like, I'm gonna just jump on. Randall's here, I can jump in, but now that we're talking about hell, I think I can add some things.
Hells yeah.
So in my opinion, if you go back to like the first like real constructed religion of mankind, and you look at the abyss of the Sumerians, and you look at deities such as like Pazuzu, before Christianity was, we'll call it a semen in its mommy's belly.
Oh my.
You can look at this concept of these different layers, and there was hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of them. I think right around 700 or so, and this construct of the afterlife, and then it would progress into the Egyptians, and they would have these mummification rituals, and the afterlife was some like universal thing. If you did it right, you could ascend to the next level of existence. And then you get to like Christians and how they try to utilize the religions around them to justify themselves, and they incorporated this hell system that never existed before in all of Yahweh worship, if you consider the Jews that never had that concept of it. And like to Randolph's point when he was talking about anti-Dante versus those that are pro-Dante, and I literally have come across that so many times because so many Christians are like, yeah, Dante had it, and then other Christians are like, you dare bring up Dante? And it's like, I dare bring up this silly concept to begin with, right? I don't know if an afterlife exists, but I know that a lot of other religions have better ones. If you look at some Native American religions, they think the afterlife is a reverse reflection of this life we live in. And if you almost reach up, you could almost pierce that reality. And in this afterlife, your ancestors are looking down upon you, and they're not judging you for your mistakes. They're judging you for your existence. And it is such a beautiful thing compared to this judging you because you don't worship me thing, so
very petty and cruel.
Yeah. So if there is an afterlife, I would hope it's something more upon those lines, but I don't believe in any of it because I think it's all nonsense. We live and we die, and the next generation comes after us. That's all I really have for you guys.
I'm so glad I finally get to catch you live.
I'm so glad you get to catch us
Thanks for
live
coming in,
too.
Canuck.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I agree in that this guy just seems like such a judgmental prick. I don't understand, especially my pet peeve criteria is just belief. Like to them, it seems very clean. To me, it's the opposite. It's very dirty. It's very, we spend our whole lives trying to find good evidence. We didn't find good evidence. We don't believe. And then we burn. We burn anyway, even
After
when we
you
spend
find
our whole
out.
lives.
It's like, surprise, I'm real, bitches. Now
Exactly.
you go burn.
Yeah. And it's like, all right, so say this Christian hell exists. Which version of Christianity do you follow to avoid it?
Indeed.
You know, it's ludicrous, really, when ultimately, if this God thing exists and he's watching us with any intensity at all and he cares about us at all, he's going to judge us upon what we do, not what we believe. So
Obviously, it would be the Smoky Saint version of hell. That would be the real one that we would all have to deal with. So
I literally just got done with the Smoky Saint stream, and it was all about like this debate he was in, and he was talking about love, and I'm like, oh my god, don't.
Oh, I love the God of love. Well, it is always interesting when they tell us, especially we're reading the Old Testament right now, and man, I don't know if it's like his teenage stage or whatever is going on right now, but he angry. He want people to kill everybody.
Yeah, not much love in dashing the children's heads against the rocks, So.
And like I said, I will give the asterisk that can only happen in an episode like Hell, and that is at least that dude lets you die. Is the only thing I will give him, is that after he's done torturing you, okay, you're done. But no. The Christians, the Muslims, they're like, how would you like part 2 and part 3 in which we could torture you?
The threat of death wasn't enough of a deterrent to force people to keep people in the religion, so they had to amp it up a little bit more just to,
Sequels
you think just killing you is bad? You think that's bad? Well, guess what? God's going to kill you, and then he's going to do mean things to you after you're dead. So
for some strange reason, the threat of death doesn't seem much of a deterrent to humanity at all. It doesn't stop us in our criminalities. It doesn't stop us in anything. It's almost as if we think that we're going to go someplace after we die.
I get this on so many apologetic streams. They're like, well, if someone thought they were going to get shot in the head for stealing bread, I bet they'd never steal a loaf of bread. It's like, no. You would just have a lot of people shot in the head. That's really what that's going to end up.
I mean, there was the bloody code in England for over 100 years, where they had over 100 capital offenses where they were executing people left and right for shoplifting above like 5 shillings or whatever the amount was. And they still executed a lot of them.
The old book, I can't remember the name of it, but it's about the French Revolution and the dude that stole a loaf of bread. I can't remember the name of the
cities.
It might be it might be that. But yeah, literally it was, or was it Dr. Zhivago? I can't remember. But it was literally this dude stole a loaf of bread during the French Revolution, and it just became this huge thing, right? And like he was literally stealing the loaf of bread to feed his family because there was no other way to feed his family. So is it an evil thing to steal that loaf of bread? No, it's not. You're trying to help your family survive, right? Like America might know this issue. Give us another year or two.
Hopefully.
But we've had times in human history where, I mean, in the Old Testament, God himself sentenced somebody to death for picking up sticks on the wrong day. I mean,
indeed, which is not a fedora.
I think that's right.
We always say it's not a fedora moment. We read it with our own 2 eyes. They definitely killed a dude for picking up sticks on the Sabbath.
And they don't get to say, oh, that's just what they did. God didn't tell them to do that. Because no. God actually came down and said, no, he shall surely be put to death. So that's on God.
The concept of hell to me is just like, it's silly, right? So if you profess your belief to Jesus Christ, then supposedly that's it. Even on your deathbed, no matter what you've done. So a rape victim who believes wholly in Jesus Christ is going to come across their rapist in heaven. The good thing is they'll be born as newborn babes and won't remember any of it, but they'll still be around that.
And
That's
you know what, the
God's ultimate plan.
apologetic, they always give the same apologetic. No
Yeah.
matter how
Have
horrible
you
the
ever told a
crime
lie?
is, they
Yeah.
just it doesn't matter how horrible it was. Rage, don't you get it? They truly mean it now. They're truly it's not like they were a rapist and then they didn't mean it. No. They were a rapist and now
Right.
they truly mean to give themselves to Jesus Christ. That somehow makes it better.
But
That's all,
Doc, have you ever told a lie? Have you ever stolen something? Oh, then you're a lying, thieving blasphemer. So you deserve the same as the guy who does go out and kill people, right?
Well, yeah, I've literally been told, because I'm an atheist, I'm worse than that by
You're
so
worse
many Christians at this point.
than a murderer, yeah.
Than a murderer, than a rapist, than the worst of the worst, because I deny the existence of God. It's then you come across some Christians that just believe that you cannot sin, and that's the scariest thing of all. Like, if that were to,
The preacher and
well, the funny thing,
man.
you I feel bad. I feel like I'm sending love to the preacher because he found our thing through a Bible study. He's like, yeah, I just was Googling and I did live and Bible study.
Yeah,
and
it was your stream that unfortunately brought me to the preacher.
we did the 10-hour stream with him, and then he started making his rounds out there.
Oh man,
I
saw your stream and I was like, oh, I got to talk to.
I got to get this guy.
And he's a nice guy. Many of the theists that we talk to are amazing individuals. It's just like, man, his sales pitch is like, the more ice cream you eat, the less weight you lose. I'm like, I'm sure it's a good plan for someone, but I'm pretty sure that's not how it works.
Well, yeah, and that was my thing, because I liked him, right? Like I liked his energy and his, like he believes what he believes. But at the same time, it was like, I don't like you at all.
Well, it's like I despise everything that you're preaching, but you're I'd have a beer.
I definitely have a beer with him. Yeah.
And don't you know he spends 18 hours a day reading the Bible? So I mean,
oh my God, I don't. Yeah.
There are certain claims that I feel like how I have pet peeves. There are things that stick that James is like, that's not real, right? And we have to say that over and over. And I love you, preacher. I'm
Amy's,
sure.
So then Amy did her 18-hour porn marathon where she used to watch porn for 18 hours a day.
He is our record of the world of our longest stream.
Like almost 11 hours. Yeah.
I do owe him, because I told him I'd go on his channel, because I kicked him off of mine. He got super drunk, and I'm like, dude, I've been there. I'm not going to take advantage of you, so we're going to end it. So I was like, I'll come on your channel. I'll come on, and I haven't done it yet, so I do owe him an appearance. So I'm gonna have to give him that.
Let Jesus take a little bit too much of the wheel.
And he admitted it. He
a little
did admit
too
it to
much
me.
communion wine.
And he actually, I think he appreciated me, because I could have went at him, and I was like, I'm not gonna do it while you're in this condition. And he admitted it later. He's like, yeah, you were right. So he's a good dude, just very misguided with it is
no
dangerous.
More. Go out, go do whatever the hell you want. Good, bad, it's great, fantastic.
Yeah, it's like, if Christians really think they can't sin, we are in trouble.
And wait, yes, let me not straw man his beliefs. You have to believe that sinning isn't real. You do have. It's just like what I was just telling you, Rage. The as long as they say that, Jesus forgives me, as long as you don't think it's fattening, it's actually, you can eat more of it.
Well, he said you could go out. He even said you could go out and molest children, and it would not be a sin. Now they will put you in prison for it, so it would be a bad idea. But God would not hold that against you, and that's just, I don't know who would say something like that. That's just ridiculous.
Someone was
ridiculous.
And that's what the beliefs. And so, I mean, it is, we try to separate theist from theism because many of us are anti-theists. And so some of these beliefs are just so dangerous that it is why we do what we do.
Well, yeah, and not all beliefs are, and that's kind of what I pointed
Absolutely.
out. The Native American beliefs earlier, like some beliefs can be very beautiful, even though they're nonsense, right? So,
Well,
you
I
know,
couldn't agree more. In fact, and I want to do an entire show of just the hero's journey. I think that when you take a story and make it literal, you have drained any semblance of wisdom or interest about the story, and you have made it a horror into something that all of a sudden, because I hear the Old Testament scholars talk about how you can't judge Moses and all this, and it's really just an allegory. But but if you take it literally, it's him drowning everyone, and then the drowning, we just need to sit there and just think about people's lungs filling up with water slowly. One of the most
Trying to hold
agonizing,
your breath
painful ways
and
to die.
trying to hold your breath, and then you can't. Yeah.
And so my point is, yes, if we just keep it in the metaphorical realm, if we just understand that it is the hero's journey, it is the tale of man learning fire and then taking it back to his people over and over again. I think there's actually a lot of use that we can get from it.
I agree wholeheartedly, and as a writer that has attempted the hero's journey quite a while, it's a hard feat to accomplish. They do it somewhat in the Bible, but it was less sophisticated times. My final point on hell, and this is something that frustrates me, and I think it frustrates a lot of atheists, like if we have to experience funerals and stuff, is that Christians, they pretend like they read their Bible, but yet every time somebody dies, they automatically assume everybody's going to heaven and they're going there immediately. When that's just not the case. If you read the Bible, everybody dies and they go to purgatory and they're going to be judged at the time of Revelation. Your loved ones are not in heaven, and more than likely, your loved ones will never be in heaven. Never.
Well, I mean,
and
Jesus himself said there are few people who find the way to heaven.
Yeah.
The way that leads to destruction is
people
narrow.
are so delusioned. They will speak of hell, but when they go to a funeral, it can never be their loved one. Ever. No matter what they know that their loved one did their entire lives. It's always they're going to heaven. You say anything at all, you're the asshole. So you just sit there and you keep your mouth shut. I don't even go to funerals anymore because it's so uncomfortable for me. I won't even go to my own family's funerals anymore because it's so uncomfortable for me. Because it's hard to be like, they're not in heaven right now. They're waiting to be judged just like we are.
The Catholic Church, they used to be kind of assholes about that. They would say, like if someone in your family committed suicide, they would say, no, they can't be buried on church grounds. They're in hell because they did that. But now they have a softer, nicer, gentler, oh, well, maybe they're in heaven. We don't know.
Yeah, it's very inconsistent across the board, and it's made it very uncomfortable for me. Like, I want to just, I recently had a cousin die, and it got very religious, and I just want to remember her, and I want to remember her for the gay person she was. I want to remember her for the person that gave me my first joint. Like, I don't want to remember this bullshit that you guys want to idolize this person. She was a human being. She had flaws. She had mistakes. And she's dead now. Let's remember her. Let's not put her somewhere that she's probably not going to fucking be. I hate it. I despise it, but I'm an asshole atheist.
They put her there for their own sake, so that they can pretend that she's not really gone.
Exactly.
And like, I think Matt Dillahunty brought this to my attention, is we are basically, in essence, killing them twice in their head. Because not only do they have to die, but we have to be assholes, basically, and say, no, you're wherever you think that is not going to happen. And to them, they have to mourn again. It sucks because we have to create those 2 mourning periods when the healthier, in my opinion, well, we all grieve in different ways, but I think that the healthiest will always be attached to truth. And so whether or not it makes us happy, I think that should always be our guiding light. And I think oftentimes that is what will eventually make us happy. I think that's how you find a healthy way of grieving.
And I do think humanity's coming a long way. It's not going to happen in our lifetimes, but maybe in our grandchildren's lifetimes. They're going to grow up in a different world than we are. And this is it's gonna just be sillier and sillier by the generation. There was actually a period in the late 1800s where they thought religion was gonna die out completely, and then the evangelical movement hit America, and everything went to hell.
I still think it's on the way out. I still think it's dying.
I do think that I don't want to, because like I said, I avoid politics generally like the plague. Everyone has their own opinions. But I do believe that there were politicians made a metaphorical deal with the devil with some religious people, and then they lost control of what was a strategic move. And so I really dislike this brand of creationism. I love the amount of speech that we are able to make in this country. I love our freedoms. And yet that also brewed a unique brands of Protestantism. We get everything from the lovey Christian to the Christian that burns giant T's on the lawn to the people that are trying and get pandas and people into our classrooms. So it's really a whole range.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to say, first of all, I'll get you a chance to wrap up on this, but I just want to shout out to Rage in general. If you don't know who the Rage is, you should be checking out. So much fantastic non-believer content out there, but you should be checking him out right there, youtube.com/.
The guy who lives rent-free in Smoky Saint's head.
Yeah. And I'm trying to be more entertaining again. I'm trying to reset, and I'm going through all the old content, and I'm gonna get like my best stuff out. I just want to say, Amy, I really enjoy you. I enjoy this channel. I enjoy what both of you guys have been doing here. When I can catch you live, which is very rare because I'm East Coast and I'm old, but when I can, I really enjoy your content. I think you do great work here.
Thank you. So really, I cannot appreciate that enough, and then just send the love right back to you.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ray.
And I'm glad it was an easy topic because I did just get streaming it, but I can talk about hell.
Well, and that is my question for you then to final up. We have been calling me skeptical, Rage, on does hell exist? What are your final thoughts?
Not at all. Nope, it doesn't exist, but it can exist here on Earth, so we need to make it better.
Hells, yeah.
All right, y'all have a good night. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Knock. Oh my. I was about to say that I think he was about to be our last caller. And then
you didn't see it? Yeah, he's been back.
I think Terry is backstage. Oh my, oh my. But I do want to just send a final shout out to Knock. Right there, you can find him right below. He is amazing, and while
good to see he's back putting out,
and I'm just sending love out there. Randolph Richardson's also right there. We have so many fantastic non-believers. There's also another channel. I'm trying to think if I could say that on the Hoven. channel that you should also check out. If you know where to go, you'll find. But I should get his link too. We are just sending so much love. I think this is going to be our final call of the night.
We'll
though.
call it here.
We are bringing on Terry. We are calling me skeptic on the topic, does hell exist? We're having fun. We're going back into the den of kittens. What is up, Terry? I hope you are doing so. As Richard would say, peace and respect. I actually like that. That's why I say Assalamu alaikum to every Muslim that I meet, because to me it's almost you could take it as a secular phrase. But yeah, sending a peace and love to you. I hope you're doing well. I haven't even said it one time in this podcast yet, so I am allocated a few times. Who controls the spice controls the universe. So we are welcome for it tonight. We're actually looking to know, does hell exist?
Yes, it does. I believe, because I'm a Christian, so I do believe hell exists. And as long as you can prove God, then you can prove everything that's written in Scripture. So that's my position. I think I don't want to be a broken record. I think everybody knows my position and my exclusive argument. I use the 7-day cycle as my argument to prove that God exists. And if I can do that, ipso facto, I prove everything in Scripture exists. So I don't want to have to repeat the same argument again. But I would like to try a different angle. Why would that be problematic for anybody if I would just say that hell exists?
Well, I would start off. Maybe I use my pass card too much. I specifically come from Judaism, in which they had no hell. And so it was unnatural to me in every way except a Hollywood sense. And so I don't understand it other than, to me, is it's like this, it's seemingly this carrot or stick. Because in the Old Testament, God didn't care whether you're going to do it, because he was going to, it's like, do you want to be my chosen people, or do you want to, there's bones behind you and you could be, we could, let's start out here. Actually, what is the purpose of hell?
Before I even go there, it's just
Sure.
like, because I'm familiar with the Old Testament. It's like my area of expertise.
Oh
the book
my!
of Daniel, the book of Daniel. I think Daniel 12 or Daniel 8. I could verify if you would like. Makes it clear there is.
Dan is our favorite character in the Bible.
So you should you should be familiar with the passage that says that there is a hell, that there is a place where people will be punished after death.
Can I ask, are you saying the Old Testament quotes hell?
If I'm quoting Old Testament?
Well,
as you move forward in the Old Testament, it does start to creep in very slowly towards the middle part of it, but it's not as explicit.
I would say it's the Sheol concept that they were talking about.
The word shield is not even there. It says some people, once you resurrect, it says some people will be resurrected to eternal joy, and some people to eternal damnation or eternal shame. So that's what it says. It doesn't specify the hellfire, but it specifies that there is a life after death, and there's people that will continue to live in glory.
Like New Testament.
And those who would continue to be, who will be eternally damned or in a state of shame. Let's put it that way. I think that's what it says in the book of Daniel. I could give you the specific reference if you would like. I could Google search it, but I'm sure if you Google search Daniel, eternal glory, eternal damnation, you should find the verse.
Oh, I think my confusion was, I think the book of Daniel's in the New Testament.
No, it's in the Old Testament.
No, it's no.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, it's Old Testament.
And just to let you know, I'm the guy, Randolph, I'm the guy, if you want to debate me on God is moral, when you're ready.
So is God more? Well, so we have two in the Docker, or we have at least slavery was with what's it called, with Peter, but then we can also have you and Randolph Richardson on morality.
I have no problem with that because my purpose. I just like to make you know my purpose because this is basically that's the reason why I don't understand why people have a problem with hell, because it's really a choice. But for you to make your choice, you have to be well informed. So I'm here to inform the people and to lay our cards on the table, so that way you can choose accordingly if you feel that this is something you would like to pursue. If you want to pursue rebellion against God, no problem. You made your choice. So that is your
Is that really a choice,
prerogative.
though?
So, but if you're arguing or if you're making or pursuing a course that is based on false information, then that's not right. So God sends his children to correct the people so that they understand what the rules of engagement are. So the stipulation of the contract. So that's what I'm here for. If people still believe in slavery, you have some popular apologists, or not apologists, but popular people like Dr. Joshua Bowen, who's claiming that. I'm willing to correct the people to inform them on what scripture states about so-called slavery or hell or
And I just
morality.
want to do one correct. So you guys are absolutely right. It is in the Old Testament. I just want to know. I want to at one point go into it because I would be interesting where it says any sort of like anything that hints towards a death and coming back, or
Okay.
even an afterlife type of
I can find a
situation.
verse for you. Give me a second.
And hold on, I actually and I gotcha too as well. Give me 1 second. Da-da-dee, da-da-da.
Yeah, I had it right. It was Daniel 12:2. Daniel 12:2. You should find it.
You're on chapter 1, yeah. You gotta go
And
back up.
you should pull it up in the Bible Hub, Daniel 12:2, Hebrew interlinear, so that way we have a better appreciation of what the verse is saying.
She's partial to this version, but
Yeah, this is the King James version, but it also
Okay,
has
if you
the
wish.
Skeptic's Annotated comments on the side.
No problem.
I think you're in chapter 1. You have to go. Yeah, what chapter was it?
12 verse 2. I was
12.
right. Like I remember it by heart.
As in,
You're in chapter 1.
Gotcha. 12:2 in the world shall wake unto everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. At the time, the end of the world, and at the time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, withstandeth the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time. And at the time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall wake, some to everlasting life, and some shall shame and everlasting contempt.
So my point is, although Judaism does proclaim or teach that there is no hell, that is specific to Judaism, not to the Hebraic understanding of what God has revealed in Scripture. This is a primary evidence that, or example, that there's this concept in Scripture, in the Hebrew Scriptures. So this is what we based our beliefs on. The New Testament elaborates on that, but it's not a New Testament concept. It's something that you can find in the Old Testament as well.
This is not a hell.
Well, yeah, as I said,
it's not clear, but it is starting to move in that direction.
Yeah, it doesn't speak of a hellfire, but it does speak of the resurrection, and it does speak of separation between one class of people and the next class of people. One people to
You can see it's
everlasting.
evolving in that direction.
Well, I would say maybe in the sense that, like, how in the Old Testament there were many gods, and then by the New Testament and the Quran, they had kind of consolidated into one God. But
I would
You don't get there until Isaiah.
I would disagree with your presentation of multiple gods. Yeah, there are multiple lower class gods, or not God the creator, but
there's the God of the
angels are called
Jews,
God.
and then there's
Angels
the
are called God.
gods of the Romans and everyone around them.
Yeah, I agree. All the gods of the fallen angels are called gods as well. We can see that in Psalms 82. But God is the
They're the
ultimate God.
demons. They become demons.
They're not demons. Demons is a different class, a lower class than the gods. Psalms 82
Fallen
talks about the
angels.
angels.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Fallen angels. Yeah.
Yeah, there's fallen angels, there's angels, they're called gods.
Some of them, some Christians differentiate between demons and fallen angels. But
Exactly. So demons are the spirits of the Nephilims that were killed, something like that. I don't want to get too complicated, but the point is there are different. There's the God, the Creator, and there's the angels and the fallen angels, and they're called Elohim as well. So just making sure we're get a better appreciation of what the Hebrew scriptures
And
actually reveal. So
well,
again, what is the problem with?
I would say that again. I would say the Hebrew scriptures, although they have certain lower class, I would always say lower class demons, they don't have any like Satan or anything that we're trying to like send souls to hell or tempt people.
The Book of
you
Job.
get that in Job.
I think that there was, you could say there were evidences of afterlife of like, it was prophesied that the Jews would come back to dead on Jerusalem. But, and I think you could see quote passages like that, like what you were saying in Daniel, I think also go towards, they believed that they were both going to die and that they were the chosen group of people. But I haven't found anything until Christianity and Islam that seems to adopt what we consider the Zoroastrianism properties of just the carrot of stick. Why is, I mean, let's just go to the, because I know, I think what you believe, but why? Like, why do you think that God has to judge people?
Well, let's put it this way. According to the Christian narrative, God gives us the opportunity to choose life or death. Okay, so this is something that is your choice. It's your choice. And as far as hell goes, this relates to people. Actually, God is doing you a favor by sending you to hell, is because you yourself at a certain point, when He removes His light from the world, giving everybody, because He sustains all reality by His light and gives life to all creation according to the Christian narrative. As you continue to rebel against him, He removes that light, and once He removes that light, darkness overwhelms you. And once you get overwhelmed by darkness, you're no longer yourself. You're being possessed by the spirits of darkness. And as that happens, as is written in the book of Revelation, you will become controlled or overpowered by these entities. And you yourself, your personality, will want to be destroyed. But God will, how can I say, not relinquish, but He will basically be removing you from your miserable existence, basically,
Coup de
because
grace, putting you out of your misery.
Yeah, it puts you out of your misery. So you would want to be
Well,
destroyed.
how long is hell?
I don't believe in eternal damnation. You will be put in the fire that's eternal, but you yourself will be destroyed, because we don't believe in the immortality of the soul. It's not in scripture. Let's put it that way. So basically, He's doing you a favor. But before He does that, He's giving you all the opportunity to see your need for him to be.
So he eventually does let us go into heaven, or
What
Or
do you
just
mean?
this. I think he's an annihilationist. So
Annihilation. You get
so the
destroyed basically.
so he would think so when God saves you and grants you eternal life, that means now you're immortal. But until you're granted eternal life, your soul can be destroyed.
well, then it sounds like you're saying hell doesn't exist.
Oh no, hell does exist. It's just not the concept that you have visualized in your mind. It's not a place where you continue to burn forever. No, it's a place which will destroy you, and I don't wish that for nobody.
But if it's a place that destroys you, that basically is saying it's I would say maybe a shredder, maybe a combination of a shredder and a trash can. It's just
wood
getting
chipper?
rid of stuff, but that does sound to me like, I mean, that's not a torture pit, but
Yeah.
that means only people go to heaven. Because if you're
What about-
dead, you're not in hell. You're just mulch.
What about in your theology, the devil? Would he be immortal, or would he also be annihilated at some point?
Annihilated. He's
Feels-
gonna be
okay.
he's gonna be one of the people that goes there.
Wait,
Like,
going
it was
to
built
be?
for him.
So
It
he's
was built for
still.
him.
He'll be consumed also.
So is he
Consumed,
still
yeah.
kicking around? Satan's
No,
still
no,
alive?
he's gonna be consumed.
No, but is he alive right now?
Oh, definite. I've seen him face to face.
Real. Continue.
No, but when I say face to face, like you won't believe, like, because he had a human person.
that
He was a human person.
That's probably true, but I'm willing to listen.
True, but I agree. He was
He's
a
handing
human
you the
person.
rope. What you
He
gonna
was
do with it?
He was a human person, but he had all the characteristics of what Scripture reveals. Because we're not supposed to appeal to our five senses; we're to appeal to Scripture. And once it's compatible with our senses, then we could ascertain the reality in which we live in. So, according to the what has been revealed about Satan and my experience, I've seen Satan face to face.
Was he trying to sell you an extended warranty for your car?
No, he was trying to make me an offer. I
Did he?
couldn't refuse.
Oh,
Couldn't
another
refuse?
offer.
Was it Seminar 5 of his DVDs?
No, he was offering me something greater than that, but I told
Oh.
him he could take a hike.
So wait.
Go kick
Now
rocks.
I'm
Satan.
interested because you're basically saying you got a deal from the devil.
Basically,
Okay.
a lot of people do.
What was that deal?
What was that deal?
Yeah.
he-
If I may be so curious.
Taco Tuesday.
Well, I don't want to get too much on my own personal story, but it's that he's.
But see, that's what I care about the most. In fact, if I could just pause you, I have debated apologists like LPP, logical, probable, plausible. Great guy as a human being. I'd have a beer with him, but it just annoys me to all hell that he just debates about genes. Because he thinks he's the gene guy. He's not the gene guy. He has no degrees in genes. And so he doesn't believe in Jesus because of the genetic code. That's not why he's saved. That's not why he preaches. And so actually why you believe is more convincing to me than what I think most creationists think would be convincing.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little glimpse of what happened because I don't believe because of my experience. My experience only became, first of all, I did believe once I became a Christian at 20, 21. I did believe because I saw the power manifest in my heart, the burning sensation. I believe because of that. But as I grew in faith and read my scriptures, the manifestation that also added to my belief, and all the promises being kept and being realized and being witnessed by external people, like people who are not believers. Like they believed, they would come to me thinking I'm a special person. Like, oh. So they believe, as scripture says in Psalms 34, I will create wonders in the sight of men. So as scripture shows from Genesis to Revelation, all the children of God were demonstrated to be God's children by the miracles and the wonders that God will perform in their lives. Like Abraham, the whole Egypt was convinced that he was a child of God. So that is the experience, the normative experience of a Christian.
Can I see?
Everybody's supposed to.
Did you say you used to not believe?
Well, I started believing at 20, 21.
Okay, so there was a time where you were an atheist or
Not
non-believer.
atheist. It's just I didn't know. I didn't know.
Agnostic, maybe.
I didn't know what I believed. I didn't know who
Gotcha.
God was. I was an atheist. I wasn't.
When I was Jewish, I wouldn't call myself a theist because I didn't know the word theist. So that's okay.
Okay, well,
I was a
in
theist. I just didn't know the word.
In retrospect, we could say I was agnostic because I didn't know. Let's put it that way. But once I did know, I knew, and as the real reason I believe is
Tautology,
my
but I'm gonna
experience.
give it to you.
My experience, but since you guys haven't seen the miracles, but the people in my city have seen it.
Well, and here that so give me and I have to pull a Matt Dillahunty. Give us your best miracle.
Okay, before I get there, I just want to, because I don't want people to misrepresent me and say, oh, I go with sensation and feeling. No, my personal testimony has been witnessed by many in my city. So those people, I don't have to try to convince them. They're already convinced. You guys never seen it. So I appeal to my argumentation of the 7-day cycle. I'm not going to repeat it. Everybody knows me for that. Well, know me. I'm not popular, but people have heard about the 7-day cycle argument. Until that has not been addressed, God has been established.
I know that's a sidetracked. I still don't.
No problem.
I still don't get it. And I just to put this out there because I know that's your shtick. We all have shticks. My shtick's consciousness. I'll just throw it out there.
No problem.
I don't really have a stick per se.
Everyone has he's now Captain America. Now he says everyone's got a shtick. What was I talking about? Originally, hell. Well,
yes.
I lost my train of thought. I have you. I'll go back to just a second. We were talking about the 7-day cycle. I said everyone has a shtick. I forgot the shtick.
Yeah.
I'm sending love. I don't get the 7-day thing because to me, it's all calendars are arbitrary. They're based on just how our solar system formed. They could have been different. There could be life on other planets that just have radically different calendars and solar systems. It's just most of this stuff is just either popular or just out of convenience. Like the difference between Fahrenheit and metric. You could say those are the two extremes between evolution and intelligent designed systems. But so, just what would you say? Your quick wrap up. Do you have like an elevator pitch for your 7-day cycle?
I have a quick. I can give you my 2 stipulations. What you said, just to let you know, I like you a lot. Thank you for the hospitality.
Thank you. Send love back.
And I mean that. What you just presented only validates my claim, not argue against it. If you really break it down to the very crux of my argumentation,
help me understand that.
No problem. Number 1, and you're a Jew, so you should know this.
Ex-Jew, but I'll take it. My family.
The God of the Hebrews makes exclusive claims to the 7-day cycle, or if you want to reformulate it, the Hebrews say that the 7-day cycle is exclusively claimed by the God of the Hebrews, their God. Number 2.
Can I just, before you even go to that premise, in my eyes, you're saying the God says it, but in my eyes, the Jews who are humans said it was God's thing. And
that's why I reformulated it. You can either way is good for me. You can say the Hebrews claim their God claims to the 7-day cycle exclusively. And number 2, the Hebrews claim that their God predicted the universal implementation of the 7-day cycle as a demonstration of their power. What is that? Yeah, delirious. Keep up.
No. She may have not come across. I have just recently come across your your sales pitch. So that's right. Help all of us.
Just come across. Reiterate for those who are familiar.
So again, the Hebrews claim that their God makes exclusive claims to the 7-day cycle. And number 2, The Hebrews claim that their God predicted the universal implementation of the 7-day cycle as a demonstration of their power over all nations. And a little caveat: every nation kept a different cycle for the veneration of their gods. So back to what Amy was saying, it became popular. No, only Israel kept the 7-day cycle. And if we can go back 2,000 years, when Jesus said, "I am the Lord of the Sabbaths, therefore wherever there's a 7-day cycle, there is the sphere of its influence," because a 7-day cycle is directly related to the Sabbath. So 2,000 years ago, historically, we can see only Israel kept a 7-day cycle. So what we need to address is, how is it a 7-day cycle who is exclusive to the Hebrews, a small nation, was able to be implemented universally against the religious, cultural, and governmental uh, um, habits of all the nations, and given the fact that it was predicted as well. So this is what we need to address. The only argumentation that can be presented against that is human agency. And whatever argument you can present for human agency, I could easily refute, because you're going to have to start with Rome. And I'm going to say the Roman calendar is not universal. And I'm going to say Rome was implemented the 7-day cycle before it became a Christian nation. So a quote unquote Christian nation, because I don't believe Rome became a Christian nation. But if you're going to use the Christianity, the Catholic Church, it was propagated through that agency. I would say that Rome implemented the 7-day cycle in the 70s by Emperor Justinian. So basically, before it became a so-called
But please,
Christian
I
nation.
have to. This is just my last pushback, because I could probably talk about this, but we're going back to not today, Satan. Wait, yes, today, Satan. But it always the TLDR version of that always just sounds to me like they predicted that we would continue to use 7 days, therefore God is real and true. And that I'm glad I didn't just straw man your argument. It is not, in my opinion, that is,
Well,
I don't know. I feel like God could do much better than
the
that.
French Revolution, they tried to make 10-day weeks. For
No, but here's the thing. Make it clear, because I know it sounds like, well, first of all, the law of cause and effect. So he said, and it has been fulfilled. So by that already it shows. But once you break it down even more, remember, every nation kept a different cycle for the veneration of their gods. So you have to explain to me why everybody relinquished their religious, cultural, and governmental aspirations to do what the little Hebrews.
Can I verify this for you? As in, like, is there a way that you would say, oh my goddess, this isn't God? As in, like, is there, if we change the cycle, if someone decides to pick a new calendar and it becomes the dominant,
I will become an atheist.
That's it. Okay, so at least, I mean, we found your mark. It is.
Hey, let me tell you something. I could add so much more layers to show you that we're like Amy. We're the last generation. Don't think, according to my understanding,
they've always thought that. Yeah.
No.
I would say, been thinking that for thousands of years.
No. But the thing is, they're not me, and they're not like the true Christians.
But come on. I mean, come on, though. Come on. When you say they're not me, they're not the true Christians, you don't hear the bias coming out.
No, but the thing is, I can validate, I can confirm that, because he says every nation has to be submitted to a 7-day cycle first. And the last nation to be submitted was the USSR in the 1940s. So the last generation must have started in the 1940s, because he has to submit the nations and the gods in the nation. He did that by the 7-day cycle. So the 1940s was the mark to show you that we're the last generation. So from 1940s, anybody that said anything before the 1940s was not inspired. Anything after the 1940s up to now, we can say, okay.
I think I know where the answer is. I assume you get all this from the Bible.
At what point in the future would
read
you
your mind,
like
send in love?
Like, if it doesn't happen, at what point would you say, okay, I was wrong? If we get to the 2060s, 2070s? When would you
Me,
call it and say, like,
I give,
okay, it's not going to happen?
I'm not a prophet, so I'm not allowed to give you a date.
Oh, okay.
But let me tell you my feeling about things. I
What's
don't
your
think we
gut
could,
say?
I don't think we have an extra 10 years, man. I don't think we have 10 years,
See,
guys.
and can I just? I wanna ease your mind. I really do.
I would have
In
said
that,
that when I was a
if
Christian.
I could, it's not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not. I hear like they're basically cheerleading for the apocalypse. It's a weird. But I mean, if I could count the number of billboards that I saw that told us that the end times were coming, and
I
then
know.
some of
agree.
them that even had dates attached, let me tell you, I'd be if I was a rich woman.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. But that gives you a feeling already. It's like they're preparing you for something great.
Yes, to
And I'm
spend
not just talking
money
about
on
the so-called
billboards.
Christians that's giving you dates. I'm giving you the movies from Hollywood and all of this. It's like they're preparing you to become
Can I actually?
adapted to this
I
reality.
think there's a reason why
Okay.
Marvel and why comic books are getting popular and why they'll increasingly get popular is
Yeah.
because I think they are an application of the hero's journey in like a secular form. They
Okay.
are our way of like having the mythos, and
Yeah.
so I think that's going to continue to be popular because
I've
that's our
compared
replacement.
Christianity and Jesus to like a comic book figure for the Iron Age. I think he was kind of like the Wolverine, like how or Thor, like how we would think of that. But that was Jesus. He was walking on water and
And
multiplying fish to
before
feed
you
people.
respond, Shane Billowitz says his argument is guilty of the Spider-Man fallacy. Even if we grant his argument, just because they got the 7-day cycle right doesn't mean donkeys can talk and there was a global flood.
Well, if you're saying that, and I say this with all due respect, you have to show me first of all an example of something like this ever happening, because I'm showing you universal power over all. Well, we'll not say all creation. We'll say every nations. So this is something that's exclusive to the Bible, and this is something that you would have to accept is divinely inspired. The Bible is divinely inspired by this evidence alone. So if you're saying no, give me another example where somebody was able to predict the universal submission of the world to the will of a person. Show me that. If you can't, then you have nothing to compare it to, and by that your assessment is a flawed one. By not being able to measure it to something else. So that's my response to that.
And I will say, sending love to our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch community. If you any one of those, keep on tagging James W, myself, or the entire panel. Tell yourself at Amy Newman. And I will also show some comments. We got, and it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord.
Jamie, I didn't get your email. Send it back to me, all right? I didn't get your email. So if you can send me your email again. I don't know what you wanted to talk to me about, but send me
And then, once again, Raven has a good point. Delirious Raven, just want to show hers up. The Babylonians who lived in modern day Iraq were astute observers and interpreters of the heavens. And it is largely thanks to them that our weeks are 7 days long. The reason they adopted the number 7 was they observed 7 celestial bodies: the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn.
The Delirious Raven, just a quick pushback. I like you a lot. I have a channel.
She's pretty awesome.
I'm gonna give you my channel. Your Way or Yahweh Tested by Fire is not for me to because I'm looking for attention. I have addressed this. I have at least 50 videos on this specifically, and every argument that you can come with, I already know them. This is this is like what has been revealed to me specifically. So the Babylonian claim.
Well, hold on, and now I gotta freeze you.
Okay.
revealed
Can I
to
just
you
respond to the
specifically.
Babylonian thing real quick? It's gonna take
Sure,
a second.
sure. Exactly. Do that, but then I do. In fact, it's a good point
Okay.
because they had natural philosophers for thousands of years who have
I agree.
helped us build this system.
The thing with the Babylonian thing, if you go to the primary sources, the Enuma Elish tablets, it will show you that they kept a lunar cycle, which is 29.5 days, which does not divide by 7. And this is the reason why that their last week, the 4th week, would end in 8 or 9 days. So therefore, breaking the recurrent 7-day cycle chain. Every scholar, once you read deeply, don't go to the first page, like go deeper into it. I gave you the primary source, Enuma Elish tablets, which is the Babylonian tablets, and you go to page chapter 5 and you read from verse 10 all the way to the end of the chapter. You'll see that they kept a lunar cycle, and a lunar cycle does not divide by 7. And that's the reason why the scholars say their last week will end in 8 or 9 days. So that's not a 7-day cycle. That's not a recurrent 7-day cycle. So my first premise, the 7-day cycle is exclusively claimed by the God of the Hebrews, is unmatched, untouched, infallible.
Right.
Thank you.
Are you convinced, James? Is Gizmo buying it?
I don't know. What does he look?
I think
Does it
I
look like
think the
he-
cat is with me. If one person on the panel is with me, it's a cat.
Yeah. He said, "You sound like a good guy." So he.
We
The
do
people cat.
love you, Terry. We love all of our theist brothers and sisters that come on. I could keep on going. My thing is, if I keep on dipping my feet in,
Well, we could agree to
so
disagree.
we'll agree to disagree and maybe even have a debate because I think that there may be people. I even saw Beamsy wanted to maybe at the very end, if Terry wants to is still up for we have a third special guest seat on this channel, but it goes no more than that because we like
No
to
problem.
have our
No problem.
1v1s.
Again, thank you for the hospitality.
No, thank you for coming on. We want to just do maybe a few more questions because you said that you had, specific.
Yeah.
We always joke that it's not a special pleading fallacy. It's just that it's special revelation. But but I would like to know then, like, get me to why were you what happened? What was the revelation, and why you, Terry? Why were you the one who got that?
I agree. You know the beautiful part about it? I said the same thing about myself. Why me? Well, let's not go to every different things that I cannot demonstrate right now, like all the things that people saw, but you haven't seen. What you have seen is the 7-day cycle argument. So I believe this is a special revelation because A, it's exclusive to me. Like you never heard of this argument before. And B, it's infallible. So by that, I know it comes from God. And why would he choose me? Because he chooses the weakest people. Because the point is he chooses the weakest people to show you, like it says in 2 Corinthians 10:5, we destroy every argument and every lofty opinion that comes against the knowledge of God and bringing every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. And it says in Proverbs 22:21 that we survey the city of the strong and we bring down the strength of their confidence. So basically, the strong arguments of this world, like all the so-called scientists and all the philosophers and all of these, he sends somebody like me, that's nobody, and bringing your arguments to nothing. Like same way he brought Moses, our shepherd, to the king of that time, the Pharaoh, and says, "Let my people go." And people are looking at him like, "Who are you?"
Can I ask?
That's not the right story to bring up.
In my opinion,
Go ahead.
You have an argument that you think is either a knockdown, a gotcha, a knockdown, whatever you want to call it for atheists. My thing is, what do you think if I had to give you a track record of your success rate of this argument working on non-believers, maybe keeping you convinced? But and I mean this, and I really do. What do you think the success rate of the argument so far has been?
and I say this with all due respect, and I say this with all honesty. I have
Sure.
never
that's what I
met
want.
anybody. If you had an excuse before meeting me, if you had
before me.
if you had an excuse before engaging with me, that's one thing. You might have one. I don't believe it because I believe I only came to finesse the point, not to convince the point. Convince
But
it.
my question is to
Yeah.
you: is how convincing do you think this
I was
argument
getting
is to
to that. I was getting
non-believers?
to that.
Okay,
I was getting.
continue.
I have never met somebody who has engaged with me after that who has remained a non-believer. Now,
Really?
what does it mean?
100% success rate?
100%.
We've heard that before. We have heard that claim before.
We have 11 hours of that claim on one stream. If you would like,
Amy, let me tell you how I know. Let me tell you how I know. If you were unconvinced before me, after me, you have been convinced, and I believe I have convinced at least 1 million people.
we're gonna we'll find them.
And how do I know? It's like I have a channel where I debate the best of the best. Matt Dillahunty.
We love Matt. Matt.
You should see how he reacted to my argument. So how do I know he's convinced? It's his reaction to my presentation. His reaction, first of all, he can argue against my point, and B, his agitation shows that my argument stirred something. So that's how I know.
I hate to say it. First of all, I love Matt, but please don't tell me that you're. If the argument is you got Matt riled up, and that is evidence that
no,
convinced him, I have bad news for you. And I love Matt. I'm just saying.
I agree with you. Matt gets stirred up by many things, but the point I'm establishing
for good reason, though. I love Matt.
But he got stirred up in a way that's different because he was unable to argue or muster a good argument against my presentation. Usually, he would get wild up and he would present an argument to supplement that. With me, he couldn't. So the evidence is clearly is public information. So every person that I have engaged is always the same result. So
basically, James and I are going to become theists. We're on the track. We've
seen a few videos that guarantee that.
Amy, I'm hoping you will. I'm hoping you will because God doesn't want anybody to be lost. So that all joke aside, he wants you.
We just want to know the truth. I feel like I can speak for James and I both there. So I just have like one or two more. I think. I always feel bad when we let others on, but then they've been waiting so patiently. If you will be a good sport, we'll let them, James and I in a second, we'll actually shut up so it won't be a 2v2. It'll still be the one-on-ones that we enjoy on this show. But I have a same direction kind of question. What would convince you, not about theism in any direction, what would convince you that a hell was not real? Or just your version of it. That not even that.
You would have to show me in scripture. That's because again, I depend on scripture. Once I validate scripture, then everything I apply is revealed in scripture. So you would have to show me scripturally by 2 to 3 witnesses as per Deuteronomy 19:15 to show me that I'm wrong.
Different person shtick.
Okay. I'm sorry?
Nothing. That we have a guy called he was on Debate Me, bro. Biblically cut. He ends every sentence with biblically, Christologically speaking.
Yeah. I know that guy.
I feel like he drives everyone crazy. I love him because I just filter that right out. And my favorite thing about that is he thinks that works. He really does think like he's convinced that by like a lawyer just saying that over and over, like, no, Your Honor, no, Your Honor, no, Your Honor, that's going to convince us.
No, he's not. He's not built for this. He's not built for this.
Terry, we have come to agreement once again, but we love everyone.
Okay. So,
but yeah,
you got anything else for me?
So really, it all goes down to scripture, and then, then that leads me, of course, to, I guess this will be the final question. I'll let you move on to Beamsy, and then when Beamsy's done, we'll just let you have your final say on hell.
Yeah.
What would convince you that scripture is not true.
And this is what I do. I challenge anybody to argue against my 7-day cycle argument. The day somebody can do that, the day a nation starts keeping a different cycle, is the day I jump off the tallest building in this world.
Please don't do that.
No,
Please
that's a
don't.
joke.
Chad.
You know, I shouldn't be joking.
No,
I shouldn't
you're
be joking.
fine. You're on
And
a what's it
what,
called?
Amy? I shouldn't even be joking about that. Let me rephrase that. The day that happens, at this day, I will become the number one. I will become
You'll become a
atheist like
Christopher
you've never
Hitchens
seen
fan.
before. But
Fantastic.
that's never gonna happen though.
Hey, never say never. I think we could probably keep on going on forever.
No,
We're
no
gonna I'm gonna try, if you guys mind, to keep this to like 10 minutes.
No problem.
We've already been having you on for a while, so we thank you so much.
And I'm grateful.
So Beamsy, James and I are gonna shut our pie holes for 10 minutes or so, or we're gonna try to, because I can't help myself sometimes. But you've been hanging patiently. So do you think that you have a new angle that you would like to discuss with our fellow gentleman over here?
No, just a couple of points of conjecture. You are saying that the 7-day calendar is based on the Hebrew calendar. Is that correct?
Amen.
Do you know that the 7-day calendar wasn't adopted in the Hebrew calendar until 600 CE?
600 CE
during the Aramaic period. Yes,
BC or C? C is after
CE. 600 CE or Common Era. BCE is before Common Era.
No, that's impossible.
It was instituted by the Tanakh. They are the ones that voted it in 5. Give me a second. It's 5 something BC in CE. This was a representation from their 12-day calendar that they were actually using as a lunisolar calendar for the first 3,000 years of their calendar.
I want to make sure I understand. Beamsy, before you continue, I want to make sure I understand. You're saying that Israel kept a 7-day cycle 600 years after Christ?
Yes, that's when they started.
Where have you get that information from?
From the aspect of the Gregorian and Hebrew calendar. If you actually look at the Ammonitic period and what the Sephardim actually voted for in... give me a second, where's my bloody notes? In the Deserkian time of...
Are you aware the 7-day cycle was known to Rome in the year 70 after Christ? You know that?
Yeah, it was actually instituted by the Julian calendar in 49 BCE.
Not Justinian. Julian,
which is before Common Era. There was actually apparently 50 years before Christ that it was actually brought in.
Okay, so 50 years after Christ?
Before.
No, 50 before. No. 50 after Christ.
49 BCE is when the Julian calendar was instigated into the Roman calendar.
Okay, no problem. Let's give that. Let's agree with that because it doesn't change much. So we know the 7-day cycle was established in the Roman Empire before 600 BC, not BC. You're saying Common Era, so CE, right? So we know that. You're saying that the 7-day cycle was not the 7-day cycle that the Romans were keeping was not influenced by the Hebrews. Is that what you're saying?
No, in accordance to Richards, it's from the Sodnius of Alexandria, the astronomers within the Greek mathematicians. So it was actually instigated for a different reason.
Okay, so I want to make it because I'm not pushing back yet. I'm just trying to figure out what you're saying here. So you're saying, okay, the Romans kept the 7-day cycle because of whatever astrological situations, but are you saying that the Hebrews, Israel, during that time, first century, was not keeping the 7-day cycle?
Not until around 550 CE, so about 600 years after the Romans adopted it.
So what were they keeping? I'm not pushing back because I think this is wow. This is the first time I heard this.
They were using something called the Tanatic. I don't know if I've actually pronounced that right.
The Tonka.
Which is what kind of cycle was that?
12 days.
Okay, I don't know where you're getting this information from. I challenge you on this. If you could show me this, I will become an atheist.
And well, first of all, That sounds fantastic, and it may be even a chance for Debate Me Brah. We're setting up all sorts of debates.
If you can show me this, if you want to debate this, I don't think this is really something we should be debating, because this is really
No, I was just pointing out some conjectures, because you were saying that your entire basis is on the Hebrew 7-day calendar, which was 600 CE, which is, you could actually read that in the literature, and the Romans adopted it, the 7-day calendar, in 50 BCE, so about 600 years before.
But do you know that we have, first of all, the Bible explains there's a 7-day cycle, and we can go to writings in the Dead Sea Scrolls, 300 years before Christ. We know we have copies of manuscripts which uh, which uh, um, which refers to the 7-day cycle, which are in the Dead Sea Scrolls 300 years before Christ. And I'm not even going to what scholars are saying, 600 or 800 years before Christ, where the 7-day cycle was known to Israel. I'm going to the Hebrew scriptures. So are you aware of this? Because this is like the history that you're presenting to me is something that is unique to yourself. I never heard this from nobody ever.
Well, the Julian calendar proposed by Julius Caesar in AUC 708 or 46 BCE was a reform of the Roman calendar. It took effect on the 1st of January AUC 709, which was 45 BCE, by edict.
Okay, I have no problems with that. I'm still full. I know that in the first century, the Julian calendar, you're saying before Christ, we'll say the first century before Christ, they had the 7-day cycle. I have no problem with that. I'm saying it was influenced by the Hebrews because they had it way before that. And you're saying
the Hebrew calendar, also called the Jewish calendar, is a lunisolar calendar used for day for Jewish religious observance. The present Hebrew calendar is a result of the process of development, including a Babylonian influence, under the Tammanic period, approximately 10 to 220 CE. The calendar employed a new crescent moon in additional months, normally adding 2 to 3 years, to correct for differences between the lunar year of 12 lunar months and the solar year. The year in which it was added was observed as natural agriculture-related events in ancient Israel through to the Amoraic periods in 200 to 500 CE. So
I'm
it
not
was
talking
added.
I'm not talking about the monthly cycles. Let's keep it simple. Only the 7-day cycle.
Yes, so this is when the calendars were actually brought in. The Israelites brought their 7-day calendar in at 200 to 500 CE. The Romans brought theirs in at 49 BCE.
One question. You just read a reference. Again, I'm not talking about the monthly cycles or the whole Hebrew calendar, just the 7-day cycle, but you just brought a reference that's saying that it was influenced by the Babylonians. The
Including
Hebrews
a Babylonian influence.
I'm sorry?
Including a Babylonian influence.
Yeah, but the Babylonian influence was in 507 in the 6th century BC. BC.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you go from Babylonian influence 500 BC to telling me, oh, they only adopted the 7-day cycle 600 in the Common Era? That's 1,000 years separation. Are you sure you got your information right? Because I'm not even saying that it was influenced by the Babylonians. I'm saying if I'm going by your information, which most of the scholars say, which I could refute, but let's go with that information. If it's Babylonian influenced, 500 years before Christ, 600 years before Christ, and you're telling me it was only implemented 600 years after that? I mean, 1,000 years after that?
No, 2 to 500 CE. So it could be anywhere from 200 to 600 years after the implementation of the Julian calendar.
Okay, let's give that go with that information. So you're saying it was influenced by Babylon, but it only came 500 years after.
Yes.
You understand the problem with that image?
I just want to send love to Zachary. Just wanted to into the internet sphere and just general love for modern day debate in general. And then I'm going to use that as a segue. About 5 more minutes, guys. So if you have any burning desire questions for each other,
I would invite you to reinvestigate.
But I've just pointed out the aspect of the Julian calendar is based on, it was designed with the aid of Greek mathematicians and astronomers such as Sonegus of Alexandria, that's where the Gregorian calendar comes from. And So Gregorius of Alexandria was a Greek astronomer from Egypt who, according to Roman historian Pliny the Elder, was constituted by Julian Caesar for the definition of the Julian calendar.
Okay. And what does that have to do with a 7-day week?
He's the one that actually influenced the Julian calendar, which was instigated in.
Why? Because I know what the historians are saying, but why? What made them go with something that's why did it come with a 7-day cycle, a 7-day week?
Because it's a solar calendar, it was based on a solar year, not a lunar year.
What does a solar year have to do with a 7-day week? It has nothing to do with a 7-day week.
Yes, it does.
Explain.
Do you know the difference between a solar, a lunar, and a lunisolar calendar?
No. Explain to me. Educate me. Tell me what a solar cycle has to do with a 7-day week.
The aspects of mathematics. You can easily divide a solar year,
which is what,
up into fragments, which is why we actually operate under a 7-day cycle.
You could divide it by many different. It doesn't have to be a 7-day week. Show me.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so it can be because of that. So if like she was saying before, the 7-day cycle has nothing to do with nature. If you're telling me it has to do with nature, please explain to me. And most historians will say the 7-day cycle is because of the lunar cycle, not the solar cycle. So I don't even know.
No, the lunar cycle is separate to the solar cycle because you can't get a full solar cycle with the lunar cycle.
Most historians I've seen, I know nobody who would make the claim that the 7-day cycle is because of the solar cycle. They would say it's because of the lunar cycle. I respond to that by saying that the lunar cycle is not is not a recurrent 7-day cycle, as some scholars have come out to say it was not a recurrent 7-day week, so we cannot refer to the Babylonians or the Sumerians as the originators of the 7-day week. That is something that we can verify and test easily. As far as your solar claim, that is the first time I've ever heard this before, and I still don't know what the equation is. What are you saying? How does the solar cycle have an effect on how many days are in a week? That is something you have to explain. Your history about 600 years after Christ is when the Hebrews kept the 7-day cycle. It's the first time I ever heard this in my life. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make, and your very reference that you appeal to goes against your very premise. Because if you're telling me it was influenced by the Babylonians, which is not true. But even if
the Hebrews were influenced by the Babylonians, but the Romans were influenced by the Greeks and the Egyptians.
But you're telling me this at least 10 generations, 15 generations, 20 generations have not kept this. That you're saying it was influenced by the Babylonians, but all of those generations didn't do nothing with the 7-day cycle, because you're saying it only came in 500 years after Christ. So there's 1,000 years separating between the Babylonian exile and the date that you're giving me, 600 after Christ. So
Mesopotamia existed until the mid.
How could they be influenced by? Who was influenced? They're all dead. Who are the people that were influenced?
That's my views on religion most of the time.
Look, I don't want to argue this point, because I would invite.
Because you're wrong. The aspect of a solar calendar is based on the measurement of Sirius in the eastern sky in accordance to the sunrise, which is how they actually come up with 12 cycles in 30 days.
It still doesn't. This still doesn't explain the 7-day cycle.
That's how they came up with it.
Huh?
That's how they came up with it.
No, you told me how many days in the year, and you told me how many months. You haven't told me how many days in a week. Again, nobody argues this. You're the only one who's arguing for a solar calendar for a 7-day week. Nobody in history.
You're providing no evidence that because they said 7 days in the Bible, 300 years before any of this came up.
In fact, what I think we'll do is I'll let you guys both have your closing statements on that topic.
No
so,
problem.
Beamsy, I thought it was good. It was a great conversation. What would you say were your final points on that? What were you driven to have this with Terry here?
It's just he's making presuppositions. He's already come to a conclusion without reading the evidence, and he's obviously just abandoning the evidence that I'm putting forwards. I will actually get all the references and actually send it to him, but It's based off the Julian. That's where the 7 days come from.
And all right, thank you so very much, Beamsy. And then Terry, if you want to just give the sentence or so wrap up of that subject, because then I'll let you wrap up on hell, and then we are going to the after show on Discord.
No problem. I think I appreciate the information that was presented by Beamsy. I would invite him to reconsider and investigate and exercise better due diligence with the information that he has provided, because a lot of things he provided doesn't stick. Like, it doesn't even address the point. A solar calendar has nothing to do with a weekly cycle. Nobody ever makes that claim. No historian, no scholar would ever make that claim. He claimed that the Hebrews were influenced by the Babylonians, but no Hebrew kept a 7-day cycle for at least 1,000 years.
And
finally,
yep.
and he says 600 years after, Israel wasn't even a nation during that time. So I'm still trying to figure out who came together to say, hey, okay, 7-day cycle when Israel wasn't even a nation. 600 years after Christ, Israel was not a nation. So I'm trying to figure out what he's saying, but it's hard for me.
That's okay. To be continued. I want to thank both of you guys, like I said, for coming on, having conversations with us. Terry, I want to give you one last shot. Just tell me when you are done, but you got all the time as it needs to take. Does hell exist?
Hell does exist. I think the best way to formulate this a debate on this topic is hell just? I believe it is just. I am willing to debate the morality of God, because I know a lot of atheists like to use rape in the Bible, slavery in the Bible, hell. What else do you guys use?
You're just doing a great
genocide.
list.
What else?
Keep
What
on
else?
going.
Genocide. What else? Sex slave. All of these stuff.
Selling your children into
This
slavery.
book.
No problem.
A good book.
I'm willing to debate any of these topics to show you that you have a misunderstanding. And thank you for this opportunity, this platform for me to express myself and express the true meaning, the true revelation of Scripture. So that way you make your choice on what is factual and not on a false pretense. So that's how I would end. Again, I'm willing to debate the issue of hell, whether it's just, because I believe hell is real, because on the infallibility of my 7-day cycle argument, which testifies that everything in Scripture is divinely inspired. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I do have to say, as this show is becoming more regular, I feel like our debates are going to have to become more once a week things instead of once every few months. Yeah. And so, sending love to you guys. Thank you, Beamsy. Thanks you, Terry, for being with us. We are going to wrap up. We have been calling me skeptical on Does God Exist? Sending you guys love. Woo-hoo. All right, that was a lot of fun. Guys. We had a good mix of atheists and theists, which is what we want. Exactly. Had great viewership, lots of interactivity. On YouTube, Twitch, we got so many people sending love if Ian's out there on Facebook. We have a lot of great things coming up. I would like to premiere my panel from DebateCon. That is going to probably be up next. And then after that, eventually, we are going to do a skeptic and ranting on the debate that James had. If you didn't have enough Hovind, then we are going to take him down ourselves, I think, a notch as we watch the entire thing. It's going to be fun. But sending love to all of you out there. Sending love. Do you have any final thoughts, James, on hell? To me, it is. I'm not a fan, but
I think we flushed it out a few different ways. But yeah,
indeed.
Thanks everybody for watching, though.
And I'm once again, we're just glad to have the fact that people disagree and come on. See, ladies and gentlemen,
There you
James
go.
says I don't bite, and did I? A little, but not much.
Not that hard. No,
Not that much. Yeah, not that hard.
not going to do a Mike Tyson.
Sending love, Doorknob Head. Sending love, Randolph. And all right, if you don't have any other things to say, I think we're
I
gonna.
think we're all done. Yeah. But
I
good
see
show.
Well, then I hope you all had a fun time on this episode of Call Me Skeptical. Does hell exist? Where tonight we opened up those internet phone lines to see if someone could help us understand if hell exists, or rather the torture pit where, people get thrown into after you die. And we hope that you had some fun worth eternal
Delightful fun.
damnation. Woo-hoo. I do want to thank my co-host James W. along with our guest Beamsy the Rage Randolph Richardson and Terry. Thank you guys so very much.
Thank you,
along
guys.
with the people in chat, our awesome mods who make the stream so great, and of course lovely viewers like you who make this channel even possible. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe, because then you gain access to that bell icon, which when sent to all will send you reminders to see our premieres or join our live streams. Or hey, why not leave a comment once the video's done? Lastly, if you'd like to help us make, that's right, the spice continues. Controls the spice controls. Lastly, if you'd like to help us make even more content, we offer perks for our supporters by checking out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Amy Newman. I am Amy Newman, and we will see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z. Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.
Mwah.